Hey, amazing viewers! Thanks for clicking on Harry What Ifs. Today's special feature is what if Rowena Ravenclaw's ghost became human again and chose Harry as the new king of Hogwarts. Your support through likes, shares, and subscriptions helps us reach more story lovers around the world. Thank you for being part of this community. Now, let's escape into this wonderful story. Chapter 1, The Founders Return. Harry Potter tugged at the collar of his dress robes as he climbed the path to Hogwarts Castle. 2 years since the Battle of Hogwarts, and these memorial ceremonies still felt like picking at a wound that wouldn't quite heal. All around him, witches and wizards in formal attire trekked up the familiar route, their conversations hushed despite the bright May sunshine. "You're doing that thing again," Hermione said, falling into step beside him. Her hair was pulled back, and she wore simple navy dress robes. "What thing?" Harry asked, though he knew exactly what she meant. "That thing where you look like you're planning an escape route." She linked her arm through his. "Ron's saving us seats. He got here early with George to help set up." Harry nodded, grateful for the distraction. "How's the ministry these days? Still driving you mad?" "Absolutely bonkers," Hermione sighed. "Minister Blackwood talks about progressive reform but then buries every proposal under committee reviews. I'm starting to think I might be more effective somewhere else." They passed through the repaired gates of Hogwarts, and Harry felt the familiar tug of magic wash over him. No matter how many times he returned, that sensation never changed, like coming home after a long journey. The great hall had been transformed for the ceremony. The house tables were gone, replaced by rows of chairs facing a small stage where McGonagall stood conversing with several official-looking wizards. Enchanted candles floated above, despite the sunlight streaming through the windows. The ceiling mirrored the clear blue sky outside, though Harry noticed unusual swirls of stars visible despite the daylight, like two skies layered atop each other. "Harry! Hermione! Over here!" Ron waved frantically from the middle section, where he'd saved them seats. His dress robes were new, Harry noticed, no lace in sight. As they made their way through the crowd, Harry found himself stopped every few steps by people wanting to shake his hand or thank him. He nodded politely, but kept moving. Even after 2 years, the attention made his skin crawl. "Bloody hell, mate, you look like you'd rather face another dragon," Ron said as Harry finally dropped into the seat next to him. "Maybe I would," Harry muttered. "At least the dragon's honest about wanting to kill me." Ron snorted. "Fair point. Hey, did you notice the sky's gone weird? George reckons it's that celestial alignment thing the centaurs have been on about. Apparently it only happens every few centuries." Harry glanced up at the ceiling again. The swirling stars seemed to be moving more rapidly now, forming patterns he couldn't quite follow. "It's the Magus Convergence," came a dreamy voice from behind them. Luna Lovegood leaned forward, her earrings shaped like tiny telescopes that actually seemed to be functioning. "Dad says it's when the magical ley lines of Britain align perfectly with the constellation Cassiopeia. Makes all sorts of impossible things possible, just for a night." Before Harry could respond, Headmistress McGonagall tapped her wand against the podium, and the hall fell silent. "Welcome to Hogwarts," she began, her voice steady but tired. "We gather today to honor those who fell defending these walls 2 years ago, and to celebrate what they protected, not merely a castle, but a legacy of magical education that has endured for 1,000 years." As McGonagall continued her speech, Harry noticed a strange sensation building in the room. The air felt charged, like the moments before a powerful spell was cast. He glanced at Hermione, who was frowning slightly, clearly sensing it too. "Does something feel off to you?" he whispered. She nodded slightly. "The magical signature in the room is fluctuating. I've never felt anything like it." McGonagall was now reading the names of the fallen, each one accompanied by a small silver light that floated up to join a constellation forming above the stage. When she reached Remus Lupin, Harry felt his throat tighten. When she said, "Fred Weasley," he heard Ron's sharp intake of breath beside him. The last name echoed through the hall, and the silver lights spun together, forming a shimmering memorial that hung in the air. But instead of fading as planned, the lights began to pulse, growing brighter. McGonagall paused, looking up in confusion. The magical lights were now spinning faster, drawing in the strange starlight that had been visible in the enchanted ceiling. A murmur ran through the crowd as the phenomenon intensified. "Wands ready," Harry said quietly to Ron and Hermione, his own already in his hand beneath his robes. After years of trouble, his instincts were razor-sharp. The swirling mass of light suddenly contracted to a single point, then exploded outward in a soundless wave that washed over the audience. Harry felt it pass through him like a ghost, cold, yet somehow familiar. As the light receded, a figure stood on the stage beside McGonagall. A woman in flowing midnight blue robes, her dark hair streaked with silver, stood examining her own hands with an expression of wonder. A delicate diadem rested on her brow, inlaid with a sapphire that caught the light. "It worked," she said, her voice carrying clearly despite its softness. "After all these centuries, it actually worked." McGonagall had taken several steps back, her wand now raised. "Identify yourself," she demanded, though something in her expression suggested she already suspected the answer. The woman turned, surveying the crowd with intelligent, piercing eyes. When she spotted Harry, she smiled slightly. "I am Rowena Ravenclaw," she said, causing a collective gasp. "And I have returned because Hogwarts faces its greatest threat since its founding." The hall erupted in chaos. Ministry officials rushed forward while others backed away. McGonagall was trying to restore order, but her voice was lost in the commotion. Harry stood, his eyes locked on the woman claiming to be Rowena Ravenclaw. He'd seen the ghost of Helena Ravenclaw, the Grey Lady, enough times to notice the family resemblance. But this was no ghost, she was fully corporeal, her presence radiating magical power that felt ancient and formidable. "Harry Potter," she called, somehow making her voice heard above the din, "I need to speak with you. Immediately." The crowd parted as Harry made his way forward, Ron and Hermione close behind him. Ministry officials tried to intercept him, but he brushed past them, his focus entirely on the founder. "Professor McGonagall," Harry said as he reached the stage, acknowledging the headmistress before turning to Ravenclaw. "You know who I am." "Of course," Ravenclaw replied. "Your actions echo through the very stones of this castle. But we have little time." She glanced up at the enchanted ceiling, where the strange stars were beginning to fade. "The convergence grants me physical form for only a short while." A tall wizard in ministry robes pushed his way forward. Harry recognized him as Thackeray Blackwood, the recently appointed Minister of Magic, a compromise candidate who'd emerged after Kingsley Shacklebolt stepped down. "This is preposterous," Blackwood declared. "This woman is clearly an impostor." "Minerva, I must insist we secure her until we determine." "Minister," McGonagall interrupted, "I suggest we hear what she has to say before jumping to conclusions. If there's even a chance this is truly Rowena Ravenclaw." "It's her," Luna said dreamily, having somehow materialized next to Harry. "The Raxperts avoid her completely. They only do that with the truly wise." Ravenclaw looked at Luna with amusement. "Fascinating perspective, young Ravenclaw. Your insight serves our house well." Turning back to Harry, she continued with urgency. "The Battle of Hogwarts did more damage than anyone realizes. Not to the castle itself, those wounds can be repaired, but to the magical foundations upon which it stands. Hogwarts was built on a nexus of magical energy, carefully balanced and protected by the four of us. Voldemort's actions, particularly the final battle, have destabilized that balance." Hermione stepped forward. "What kind of destabilization? What would that mean, exactly?" Ravenclaw nodded approvingly at Hermione. "Intelligent question. At minimum, the protective enchantments will begin to fail. At worst, the concentrated magic could become volatile, even destructive. Hogwarts was designed not only as a school but as a containment system for one of Britain's most powerful magical sources. That's absurd, Minister Blackwood scoffed. Our unspeakables have examined Hogwarts thoroughly. There's no evidence of any such magical instability. Your unspeakables, Minister, lack the proper perspective, Ravenclaw replied coolly. They examine magic through the lens of modern understanding, which has both advanced and regressed since my time. Some knowledge has been lost, deliberately obscured, in fact. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. Deliberately obscured? By whom? By us, Ravenclaw said simply. The Founders. We determined certain aspects of magical knowledge were too dangerous to leave accessible, especially regarding the nexus beneath Hogwarts. We created a position, a protector who could access and maintain the deeper magics without allowing that power to become common knowledge. Minister Blackwood was growing visibly frustrated. And what position would that be? I'm familiar with the complete historical record of Hogwarts administration. Not the complete record, Ravenclaw said with a slight smile. The King of Hogwarts isn't mentioned in your histories because we removed those references. The knowledge was passed directly from king to king, until the tradition was abandoned in the 14th century. After that, we Founders maintained the balance through our lingering magical signatures, but that stopgap has been deteriorating for centuries. Voldemort's attack was the final blow. The hall had gone silent, everyone hanging on her every word. Harry felt uncomfortable with all eyes shifting between him and Ravenclaw. Why are you telling me this? He asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Ravenclaw raised her hand, and a complex pattern of light appeared in the air, a map of glowing lines that Harry somehow understood represented the magical currents flowing beneath Hogwarts. Several points pulsed an angry red. Because the Founder's selection has activated an emergency protocol that triggers when the nexus reaches critical instability. It seeks out the person most capable of restoring balance. Her eyes locked with Harry's. It has chosen you, Harry Potter. Before anyone could react, Ravenclaw stepped forward and pressed her palm against Harry's forehead. A surge of magic flowed through him, not painful but overwhelming, like suddenly hearing 100 conversations at once or seeing in spectrums beyond normal vision. He staggered backward, and Ron caught his arm to steady him. Looking down, Harry saw an intricate symbol glowing on his right palm, a stylized H surrounded by 4 smaller emblems representing each house. What did you do to me? He gasped, the new sensations slowly resolving into something he could process. I awakened what the selection had already determined, Ravenclaw said. You are now bonded to Hogwarts in ways even most headmasters never experience. You can perceive its magical infrastructure, access sealed chambers, and eventually, repair the damage. Minister Blackwood had drawn his wand. This is outrageous. You can't simply appoint someone to a position that hasn't existed for centuries, a position that, frankly, sounds suspiciously like it supersedes ministry authority over Hogwarts. It doesn't supersede the ministry's educational oversight, Ravenclaw clarified, but yes, in matters of Hogwarts' fundamental magic, the king's authority is absolute. It must be, or the nexus cannot be properly maintained. Harry felt a new awareness spreading through him, a connection to the castle itself. He could sense the Great Hall's magic, the enchanted ceiling, the protective barriers around the grounds. More disturbingly, he could feel the instabilities Ravenclaw had mentioned, like fault lines running through the magical bedrock. I can feel it, he said quietly. There's damage, deep down. Hermione grabbed his arm. Harry, are you all right? Your eyes. What about my eyes? They're glowing, Ron said, staring at him. Sort of, bluish. Blackwood stepped between Harry and Ravenclaw. That's quite enough. Whatever enchantment you've placed on Mr. Potter, remove it immediately. This ceremony is concluded, and you will accompany ministry officials for questioning. Ravenclaw regarded him with the patience one might show a particularly slow student. Minister, I cannot remove the bond, nor would I if I could. The selection is irreversible, activated by Hogwarts itself rather than any single will. And we have precious little time before the convergence ends and my physical form returns to the spectral realm. She turned to Harry again. There are chambers you must see, knowledge you must acquire. The castle will guide you, but I can show you the beginning of the path. Harry looked at Ron and Hermione, who both gave him slight nods. After everything they'd been through together, words weren't necessary. Whatever this was, they'd face it as they always had, together. Lead the way, Harry said to Ravenclaw, ignoring Blackwood's sputtering protests. As they left the Great Hall, followed by Ron, Hermione, McGonagall, and a determined contingent of ministry officials, Harry felt the castle responding to him in subtle ways. Doors unlocked before he reached them, torches flared to life as he approached, and he somehow knew exactly which corridors to take, even when Ravenclaw led them to parts of the castle he'd never seen before. These passages have been sealed for centuries, McGonagall remarked as they descended a narrow staircase that had appeared behind a tapestry. I didn't even know they existed. The castle has many secrets, Headmistress, Ravenclaw replied. Some kept deliberately, others simply forgotten with time. They reached a landing with a large oak door bound in iron. Intricate runes covered its surface, glowing faintly in the dim light. The Founder's Chamber, Ravenclaw announced. Only a Founder or the King of Hogwarts may open this door. Harry approached, the symbol on his palm tingling. Without being told, he knew to place his hand against the center of the door. The runes flared brilliantly, then the heavy door swung inward without a sound. The chamber beyond was circular, with a high domed ceiling enchanted similar to the Great Hall, but showing different stars, constellations Harry didn't recognize. Four massive chairs of different designs sat in a circle around a central pedestal, upon which rested a crystalline orb about the size of a quaffle. The heart of Hogwarts, Ravenclaw said, gesturing to the orb. Or rather, a representation of it. The actual nexus lies deep beneath the castle, but this allows the king to monitor and influence it without descending to the lower chambers. Harry approached the pedestal cautiously. As he drew near, the orb began to glow, and within it, he could see swirling patterns of magic, the same network of ley lines Ravenclaw had shown them earlier, but in far greater detail. It's beautiful, Hermione breathed, staring at the orb. I've read theories about magical nexus points, but nothing this complex. Minister Blackwood pushed his way forward. This chamber doesn't appear in any historical record of Hogwarts. How do we know this isn't some elaborate deception? The chamber doesn't appear in records because it exists outside standard space, Ravenclaw explained with thinning patience. It's anchored to Hogwarts but partially exists in a folded dimension, a magical concept your unspeakables rediscovered only recently, I believe. She turned to Harry. Place both hands on the orb. It will complete the initial bonding and show you the current state of the nexus. Harry hesitated only briefly before placing his hands on the crystal sphere. Immediately, his awareness expanded dramatically. He could feel every corridor, classroom, and hidden passage in the castle. More than that, he could sense the people within, not specific thoughts, but their magical signatures, emotions, and movements. The damaged areas Ravenclaw had mentioned appeared as dark fractures in the otherwise brilliant network. The damage is worse than you described, he said, his voice sounding distant to his own ears. There's a major disruption beneath the astronomy tower, and another under the lake. Ravenclaw nodded grimly. Those are recent developments. The instability is accelerating. Harry removed his hands, feeling slightly dizzy as his perception snapped back to normal. What exactly am I supposed to do about this? Heal it, Ravenclaw said simply. The king's primary duty is to maintain and protect the magical foundation of Hogwarts. The position was created because no ordinary headmaster could channel the power required. And you think I can? Harry asked skeptically. The selection chose you, not I, Ravenclaw replied. Though I cannot say I'm surprised. Your magical core is unusually resilient, likely due to your unique history. You've also demonstrated a remarkable ability to channel intense magical energies without being consumed by them. Minister Blackwood had heard enough. This is absurd. Mr. Potter has no official standing to take control of anything at Hogwarts. Whatever this selection might be, it has no legal recognition in modern wizarding governance. Actually, Minister, Hermione interjected, magical bindings predating the ministry's formation typically supersede modern regulations, particularly when tied to foundational magical sites. It's in the ministry charter itself, Clause 73, subsection B. Blackwood looked at her with barely concealed irritation. Miss Granger, with all due respect to your encyclopedic knowledge of obscure regulations, this situation requires more than legal technicalities. It demands careful consideration by qualified experts. Then let's bring in those experts, Harry suggested, regaining his composure. But in the meantime, something's wrong with Hogwarts, and I can feel it getting worse. Whatever this king business is about, ignoring the problem won't make it go away. A rumble shook the chamber, as if to emphasize his point. Dust drifted down from the domed ceiling. That's the third tremor today, McGonagall noted. They've been increasing in frequency. Ravenclaw looked up at the enchanted dome, where the strange stars were beginning to fade. My time grows short. The convergence is ending. She turned to Harry. There's much more you need to know, but it will have to wait. For now, trust your connection to the castle. It will guide you. Wait, Harry said urgently. How do I fix the damage? You can't just drop this responsibility on me without instructions. Ravenclaw smiled slightly. The library contains a section hidden to all but the king and the headmaster. There, you'll find the journals of your predecessors. Start with Alaric the Stabilizer. He faced similar issues in the 12th century. Another, stronger tremor shook the chamber. This time, a crack appeared in one wall. The destabilization is accelerating, Ravenclaw said, looking concerned. You must act soon. Minister Blackwood stepped forward. I'm placing this entire area under ministry jurisdiction pending a full investigation. No action will be taken without proper authorization. Harry felt a surge of frustration. Minister, with respect, we don't have time for bureaucracy. If Hogwarts is in danger, if, Blackwood emphasized. A very significant if, Mr. Potter. For all we know, this could be an elaborate hoax or, more charitably, a misunderstanding. Ravenclaw's form suddenly flickered, becoming momentarily translucent before solidifying again. She looked down at her hands with a hint of sadness. The convergence is ending. I must show you one more thing before I return to the spectral realm. She approached the center of the room. Watch carefully. With a complex gesture, Ravenclaw caused the floor to become transparent, revealing a vast chamber far below. A swirling vortex of magical energy pulsed there, brilliant blue shot through with veins of gold and silver. Around its edges, Harry could see the damage, areas where the magic leaked erratically or twisted in unnatural patterns. This is the true heart of Hogwarts, Ravenclaw explained. What lies beneath all the enchantments and stone? The founders didn't choose this location by chance, we built here to contain and channel this power. Without proper maintenance, that power will become chaotic, eventually explosive. Even Blackwood seemed sobered by the sight. If that's genuine, how much time do we have? Weeks, perhaps a month, Ravenclaw said. Less if the deterioration continues to accelerate. She turned to Harry. The crown accepts you. The castle calls to you. Will you answer? Harry looked at Ron and Hermione, who both nodded encouragingly, then to McGonagall, who looked concerned but resolute. Yes, he said firmly. I'll do whatever needs to be done to protect Hogwarts. Ravenclaw smiled, her form now visibly fading. Then kneel, Harry Potter, and receive what is yours by right of selection. Ignoring Blackwood's protests, Harry knelt before her. Ravenclaw removed the diadem from her own head and held it above him. It transformed, shifting from the delicate feminine design to a simple circlet of silver inlaid with stones representing the 4 houses. "This is not my diadem, but the crown of Hogwarts," she explained. "It has taken many forms throughout the centuries." She placed it on Harry's head, and he felt another surge of connection to the castle. "Rise, Harry Potter, King of Hogwarts," Ravenclaw proclaimed, her voice echoing with power despite her increasingly transparent form. "May you guard her well." The crown shimmered, then seemed to dissolve into light that sank into Harry's skin. The symbol on his palm glowed brighter momentarily, then faded to what looked like an intricate tattoo. "The crown manifests only when needed," Ravenclaw explained, now barely visible. "But its power remains with you always." With a final smile, she faded completely, leaving the group staring at the empty space where she had stood. The silence that followed was broken by another, more violent tremor that sent cracks racing across the floor. "Everyone out," Harry ordered, suddenly certain of the danger. The chamber's destabilizing without her presence. They rushed for the door as pieces of the ceiling began to fall. Harry was the last one through, pulling the heavy door shut behind him just as a large section of the dome collapsed. "Well," Ron said, brushing dust from his dress robes, "that was dramatic." "Indeed, Mr. Weasley," McGonagall said dryly. "Mr. Potter, how do you feel?" Harry considered the question. The connection to Hogwarts remained, a constant awareness humming at the back of his mind. He could feel the tremors building deeper in the foundations. "Like I've got a lot of work to do," he replied. "And not much time to do it." Minister Blackwood straightened his robes. "This situation requires immediate consultation with the Wizengamot. Until then, I must insist that you take no action based on this encounter." Harry felt a flash of anger. "Minister, did you not see what I just saw? Hogwarts is in danger. We can argue about authority later." "What I saw was an unexplained magical phenomenon and a lot of unverified claims," Blackwood replied stiffly. "I'll have a team of unspeakables examine everything before we proceed." Hermione stepped forward. "Minister, Clause 73 specifically grants autonomy to foundational magical sites in matters of existential threat. If Harry can verify the danger through his connection, Miss Granger," Blackwood interrupted, "legal debates can wait. For now, this area is restricted pending investigation." He gestured to his aides. "Seal off this corridor and post guards. No one enters without my personal authorization." As the ministry officials moved to comply, Harry felt a strange sensation, a whisper from the castle itself. Without thinking, he placed his hand on the wall beside him. Instantly, the stone rippled and a new passage appeared. "I think Hogwarts disagrees with that plan, Minister," Harry said quietly. "And apparently, so do I." Before Blackwood could respond, another violent tremor shook the castle, much stronger than the previous ones. The sound of distant crashes echoed through the corridors. "That came from the astronomy tower," McGonagall said, alarmed. "Precisely where you indicated damage, Potter." Harry didn't hesitate. "I need to get there now." He turned to Ron and Hermione. "Help McGonagall evacuate anyone in that section." "And what exactly do you plan to do?" Blackwood demanded. "Whatever I can," Harry replied, already moving toward the new passage. "Minister, you can either help or stay out of the way, but I'm not waiting for committee approval while Hogwarts falls apart." The passage led him through unfamiliar corridors that seemed to shift and realign themselves as he ran, creating the most direct route to the astronomy tower. He emerged at its base just as another tremor hit, sending a large chunk of stone crashing down from above. Harry instinctively raised his hand, and to his shock, the falling masonry froze in midair. The mark on his palm was glowing again, and he could feel the castle's magic responding to his will. With a gesture, he guided the stone safely to the ground. "Wicked," he muttered to himself, staring at his hand. Students and staff were fleeing the tower, many looking back in fear at the growing cracks in its structure. Neville Longbottom was helping a limping third-year student. "Harry!" Neville called. "What's happening?" The tower started shaking, then those cracks appeared out of nowhere. "It's complicated," Harry replied, scanning the damage with his newly enhanced perception. He could see the magical fracture now, a tear in the underlying enchantments that was allowing raw magical energy to leak through, destabilizing the physical structure. "Everyone clear out," he ordered. "Get at least 100 yards back." As people retreated, Harry approached the base of the tower and placed both hands against the stone wall. Closing his eyes, he reached for the connection he'd felt in the Founder's chamber. The castle's magic responded, flowing through him like a current. He could sense the damage now, a tear in the magical fabric that needed to be rewoven. Instinctively, he began to direct the flow of magic, using his own as a guide to show the castle's magic how to repair itself. It was exhausting work. Sweat broke out on his forehead as he channeled more power than he'd ever handled, even during his confrontation with Voldemort. But slowly, he felt the tear beginning to mend, the wild magic being contained and redirected back into its proper channels. With a final push that left him gasping, Harry completed the repair. The tremors ceased, and the cracks in the stonework sealed themselves, the blocks shifting back into their proper alignment. He staggered backward, suddenly drained. Ron appeared at his side, catching him before he could fall. "Easy there, Your Majesty," Ron joked, though his expression was worried. "That was bloody impressive." "It's just a temporary fix," Harry said, catching his breath. "The damage goes deeper, all the way to the nexus." That was just a symptom. A crowd had gathered at a safe distance, watching in amazement. Minister Blackwood pushed his way through, followed by a team of unspeakables in their distinctive robes. "What did you just do, Potter?" Blackwood demanded. "Saved your committee some time," Harry replied tiredly. "I repaired the immediate damage, but it's only a bandage on a much bigger problem." One of the unspeakables, an older witch with sharp eyes, stepped forward. "Minister, I believe we should reconsider our approach. What Mr. Potter just did should have been impossible without extensive runic preparation and a team of spellcrafters." "You felt it too, then?" Harry asked her. She nodded. "The magical surge was unlike anything I've recorded in 30 years with the Department of Mysteries. If you can manipulate Hogwarts' foundational magic so directly." She turned to Blackwood. "Sir, this lends significant credibility to the claims about a King of Hogwarts' position." Blackwood's expression hardened. "We'll discuss this later. For now, I want a full magical assessment of the tower and surrounding areas." As the unspeakables moved to comply, Harry turned to Ron. "Where's Hermione?" "Library," Ron said with a knowing smile. "Where else?" "Said something about restricted historical records and ran off the moment McGonagall gave her permission." Harry nodded. "Good. We need to know more about what I've gotten myself into." "Yeah, about that," Ron said, lowering his voice. "Are you really the King of Hogwarts now? Because I've got to say, mate, you've had some mental titles over the years, but this one takes the cake." Despite his exhaustion, Harry laughed. "Trust me, I didn't ask for it. But if it helps me protect Hogwarts." He shrugged. McGonagall approached, looking both impressed and concerned. "Potter, that was extraordinary magic. How do you feel?" "Tired," Harry admitted. "And hungry, actually." "Then I suggest we retire to my office," McGonagall said. "The kitchens can send up something while we discuss this situation more thoroughly." As they made their way through the castle, Harry noticed people staring and whispering. News traveled fast at Hogwarts, and apparently, the sight of Harry Potter magically repairing the astronomy tower had already become the latest sensation. "Just like old times," Ron muttered. "Can't go anywhere without causing a scene." In McGonagall's office, they found Hermione already waiting, surrounded by stacks of ancient books. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "Harry! I found references to the Kings of Hogwarts in the restricted section, books that weren't even in the catalog until today. They just appeared on a shelf that I swear wasn't there before. The castle's responding to the new bond, Harry explained, dropping gratefully into a chair. It's making resources available that were hidden. Hermione nodded eagerly. According to these records, the position existed from the founding until 1342, when the last king died without naming a successor. There were 17 kings in total, all chosen through the founder's selection during times of crisis or transition. And what exactly were their powers? McGonagall asked, conjuring tea with a wave of her wand. Hermione flipped through one of the larger tomes. It varies, but they all had direct access to and control over Hogwarts' foundational magic. They could alter the castle's architecture, strengthen or modify its enchantments, and communicate with the building itself on some level. Some accounts describe more unusual abilities, sensing everyone within the grounds, controlling the ambient magic, even enhancing the magic of others while on Hogwarts soil. I felt some of that, Harry confirmed, accepting a cup of tea from McGonagall. When I was repairing the tower, it was like the castle was working with me, showing me what needed to be done. The books also mention the Founder's Chamber and something called the Heart Chamber, the actual nexus point deep beneath the castle, Hermione continued. Apparently, that's where the most critical work happens. A house elf appeared with a tray of sandwiches, which Ron immediately attacked. Harry realized how hungry he was and joined in. The question remains, McGonagall said, how to proceed given the Ministry's obvious reluctance to acknowledge this ancient authority. Harry swallowed a bite of sandwich. I don't care about authority or titles. What matters is that Hogwarts is in danger, and for whatever reason, I'm in a position to help. Everything else is just politics. Politics you cannot ignore, came a voice from the doorway. Minister Blackwood stood there, flanked by two unspeakables. My team has confirmed unusual magical activity throughout the castle. While concerning, it doesn't justify bypassing proper protocols. Harry set down his cup. Minister, with respect, this isn't about protocols. Ravenclaw wasn't exaggerating, there are serious magical instabilities under Hogwarts. I can feel them getting worse by the hour. Then work with us, Blackwood said, his tone reasonable. Share what you know with our experts. Let us approach this methodically. I'm happy to work with anyone who wants to help, Harry replied. But I won't stand by while committees debate and file reports. The next collapse might not give us any warning. As if on cue, another tremor shook the castle, milder than before, but enough to rattle the windows. That was beneath the lake, Harry said, eyes unfocused as he sensed the disturbance. Another weak point giving way. Blackwood looked unsettled. You can really feel these disturbances? As clearly as I can see you standing there, Harry confirmed. Minister, I understand your concerns about an ancient magical position suddenly reappearing. But right now, Hogwarts needs help, not bureaucracy. One of the unspeakables, a middle-aged wizard with a neatly trimmed beard, stepped forward. Minister, if I may. Our preliminary scans confirm severe magical instability throughout the Foundation matrix. Whatever this King of Hogwarts business entails, Potter demonstrated remarkable effectiveness in stabilizing the tower. Perhaps a provisional authorization, out of the question, Blackwood interrupted. The precedent would be, another, stronger tremor cut him off, this one accompanied by the distant sound of shattering glass. That's it, Harry said, standing abruptly. I'm done waiting for permission. He turned to McGonagall. Headmistress, as a precaution, I think we should evacuate all non-essential personnel from the castle until the foundations are stabilized. McGonagall nodded. Agreed. Most students have already departed after the ceremony, but I'll arrange for the remaining visitors and younger students to be escorted to Hogsmeade. Potter, Blackwood warned, I cannot authorize. I'm not asking for authorization, Harry interrupted, a sudden authority in his voice that surprised even him. I'm informing you of what needs to happen. You can help coordinate the evacuation, or you can leave. Either way, I'm going to do whatever it takes to protect this castle and everyone in it." The mark on Harry's palm glowed briefly, and he felt a surge of magic that seemed to resonate throughout the office. The portraits of former headmasters, which had been watching silently, suddenly erupted in applause. "Well said, young man," called the portrait of Armando Dippet. "The king speaks," Phineas Nigellus Black declared with unusual approval. About time Hogwarts had proper leadership again. Even Dumbledore's portrait was smiling, his eyes twinkling. "I believe, Minister, you'll find that in matters concerning Hogwarts' fundamental well-being, the king's authority is quite absolute. A quirk of magical law that predates the ministry itself." Blackwood looked from the portraits to Harry, his expression conflicted. Finally, he sighed. "Very well, Potter. Provisional cooperation, pending formal review. But I'll be watching every move you make." "Fair enough," Harry agreed. "Now, I need to get to the lake. That last tremor damaged something important." "I'm coming with you," Ron declared, grabbing another sandwich for the journey. "Me too," Hermione added, reluctantly setting down her books. McGonagall stood as well. "I should oversee the evacuation, but I'll send Professors Flitwick and Vector to assist you. Their expertise in charms and arithmancy might prove useful." As they left the office, Harry felt the castle guiding him once more, corridors shifting to create direct paths, doors unlocking before he reached them. It was disorienting but also reassuring, like having a silent ally showing the way. They reached the shore of the Black Lake just as another tremor rippled across the water's surface. A section near the far bank was bubbling ominously, the water taking on an unnatural bluish glow. "That doesn't look good," Ron observed. Harry extended his senses, feeling for the damage. "There's a breach in the containment field under the lake bed. Raw magic from the nexus is leaking into the water. What happens if it continues?" Hermione asked, already casting diagnostic spells of her own. "Nothing good," Harry replied grimly. "The lake connects to underground rivers that run for miles. If contaminated magic gets into that water system..." He didn't need to finish. They'd all seen what happened when magic went wild: mutations, unpredictable effects, potentially catastrophic consequences. "What do you need us to do?" Ron asked, wand ready. Harry considered for a moment, then nodded toward the glowing section. "I need to get closer to seal the breach. Can you two keep the water stable while I work? Any spell that calms or contains should help." They nodded, and together they made their way to the small dock where the first-year boats usually landed. Harry could feel the damage growing worse by the minute, not just the breach itself, but the cascading effects as uncontained magic interacted with the lake's natural enchantments. "Hermione, try a modified containment charm, focus on isolating magical energy rather than physical matter," Harry suggested, surprised at his own certainty. Knowledge that wasn't his seemed to be flowing from his connection to the castle. She nodded, casting an intricate spell that created a shimmering barrier around the affected area. Ron complemented it with a stabilizing charm usually used for volatile potions, adapting it to work on the larger scale of the lake. With the immediate spread contained, Harry closed his eyes and reached for the deeper magic. The mark on his palm burned as he connected with the castle's foundation, sensing the exact nature of the breach. Unlike the tower, this wasn't just a structural weakness, it was a full rupture in one of the primary containment wards. "This is going to take more power," he warned his friends. "Stand back." As they retreated to a safer distance, Harry extended both hands toward the lake. The symbol on his palm flared brilliant blue, and he felt the crown materialize on his head, not physically, but as a presence of power that channeled and focused his magic. Drawing on both his own strength and the ambient magic of Hogwarts, Harry began to rebuild the broken ward. It was intricate work, like trying to weave an invisible tapestry underwater. He could feel the original pattern, a brilliant creation of Ravenclaw and Slytherin's combined genius, and worked to restore it thread by magical thread. Sweat poured down his face as he channeled more magic than he'd ever attempted to control. The water before him began to glow in response, patterns of light reflecting the ward structure taking shape beneath. Just as he neared completion, a violent surge of magic erupted from the breach, the nexus energy fighting against containment. The backlash slammed into Harry, sending him staggering backward. Ron caught him before he could fall into the water. "It's fighting back," Harry gasped. "The wild magic, it's become almost sentient after being uncontained for so long." Professors Flitwick and Vector arrived at that moment, taking in the situation quickly. "Remarkable," Vector murmured, her arithmancer's eyes seeing the mathematical patterns in the magical energies. "Potter, the ward structure you're creating, it's a 7-dimensional containment lattice. That's beyond an EWT level by centuries." "It's not me," Harry admitted, regaining his balance. "It's the castle showing me what to do." Flitwick nodded in understanding. The kings of Hogwarts were said to share consciousness with the castle itself. Fascinating to see it in action. Another surge bubbled up from the lake, this one sending a fountain of glowing water 20 feet into the air. "Fascinating later, helping now?" Ron suggested pointedly. Of course," Flitwick squeaked. He and Vector moved to reinforce Hermione's containment spell, adding layers of complexity that helped stabilize the perimeter. With their support holding the immediate danger at bay, Harry could focus entirely on repairing the core breach. This time, instead of fighting against the wild magic, he tried a different approach, acknowledging its power and guiding it back into proper channels rather than forcing it. The response was immediate. The rebellious energy calmed, allowing him to complete the ward reconstruction. With a final surge of power that left him momentarily lightheaded, Harry sealed the breach. The glow faded from the lake's surface, returning to its natural dark appearance. "Is it fixed?" Ron asked cautiously. Harry nodded, dropping to one knee in exhaustion. "For now." But that was just another symptom. "We need to address the source." "The nexus itself," Hermione concluded, helping Harry back to his feet. "According to the books I found, you'll need to perform a complete rebalancing ritual in the heart chamber. Which would be wonderful if we knew where this heart chamber was located," Ron pointed out. Harry felt a tug in his mind, the castle communicating in its wordless way. "I think I do know," he said slowly. "Or at least, I will when we get closer." As they made their way back toward the castle, a commotion near the main entrance caught their attention. A group of wizards in distinctive dark robes were arguing with McGonagall and several staff members. "That's not good," Hermione said with a frown. "Those are from the Department of Magical Authority, the Ministry's Enforcement Division for Magical Regulations." "What are they doing here?" Ron asked. Harry's jaw tightened. "I think Blackwood's changing tactics." They approached just in time to hear the lead DMA official, a tall witch with a severe expression, addressing McGonagall. "By order of the minister himself. Until a full review can be conducted, all unusual magical activities at Hogwarts are to cease immediately." McGonagall's expression was icy. "And how exactly do you propose to stop magical instabilities that are occurring naturally? Shall we ask the castle politely to stop crumbling? Our concern is specifically with Mr. Potter's unauthorized use of unknown magic," the witch replied. "The minister has classified these King of Hogwarts activities as potentially dangerous, pending proper investigation." Harry stepped forward. "The only danger is in doing nothing. I've just prevented 2 major magical catastrophes, and there are more brewing." The witch turned to him. "Mr. Potter. I have orders to escort you to the ministry for a full debriefing and magical examination." "That's not happening," Harry said firmly. "Not while Hogwarts is still at risk." "This isn't a request," she replied, gesturing to her colleagues who moved to surround Harry. "The minister has invoked Emergency Magical Security Protocol 17. Harry felt the castle's magic stirring in response to his rising anger. The mark on his palm began to glow again. "I don't have time for this," he said quietly. "Hogwarts is in danger, and I'm the only one who can fix it. Either help me or get out of my way." The lead witch drew her wand. "Mr. Potter, please don't make this difficult." Before anyone could cast a spell, the ground beneath them trembled, not from magical instability this time, but in response to Harry's connection with the castle. The stones of the entrance hall shifted, creating a barrier between Harry and the ministry officials. "What the?" one of the wizards exclaimed as the floor rearranged itself. Harry was as surprised as anyone, but he recovered quickly. "The castle has made its choice clear," he called through a gap in the stone barrier. "Tell Blackwood I'm willing to cooperate fully once Hogwarts is secure, but not before." McGonagall looked at him with raised eyebrows. "Impressive, Potter, though perhaps a bit dramatic." Harry shrugged. "Wasn't entirely intentional. The castle seems to have its own ideas about who should be allowed to interfere right now." The barrier would buy them time, but Harry knew it was only a temporary solution. Sooner or later, the ministry would find a way through or around it. "We need to move quickly," he said to Ron and Hermione. "The nexus won't wait for political disputes to be resolved." "Where to?" Ron asked. Harry closed his eyes, feeling for the castle's guidance. "Down," he said after a moment. "Deep below the dungeons. There's a passage behind the statue of Morgana in the old potions corridor." As they hurried through the castle, Harry could sense the building's growing distress. More fractures were forming in the magical foundations, and the time between tremors was decreasing. They found the statue where Harry had indicated, a life-sized representation of Morgana Le Fay that most students hurried past, unsettled by her unsettling smile. Harry placed his palm against the base, and the mark glowed in response. The statue slid silently aside, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into darkness. "Lumos," Hermione cast, illuminating the passage. "This doesn't appear on the Marauder's map." "Some secrets go deeper than mischief," Harry said, surprised again by knowledge that seemed to come from elsewhere. The King's passages were hidden even from the Founders after a time, safety measures to protect the nexus. They descended for what seemed like ages, the air growing cooler and charged with magic. Harry could feel they were getting closer to the source, the heart of Hogwarts that Ravenclaw had shown them. Eventually, the stairs ended at a massive circular door inscribed with runes similar to those on the Founder's chamber but far more complex. Unlike the previous door, this one required more than a touch to open. "What now?" Ron asked, eyeing the imposing barrier. Harry examined the runes, understanding flowing from his connection to the castle. "It needs a demonstration of all four house virtues," he explained. "Courage, wisdom, loyalty, and ambition, all in service to Hogwarts." Hermione looked thoughtful. "A test to ensure only the worthy can access the heart." Harry nodded, then stepped forward. Following instincts that weren't entirely his own, he placed his palm on a specific rune pattern at the center of the door. "I, Harry Potter, King of Hogwarts by right of selection, seek entrance to heal what is broken and protect what endures." The runes began to glow in sequence, red, blue, yellow, green, before all illuminating at once. The massive door swung inward silently, revealing the chamber beyond. It was vast, far larger than seemed possible given their location beneath the castle. The ceiling arched high above, a perfect replica of the night sky as seen from Hogwarts grounds. The floor was a complex mosaic depicting the four house animals surrounding a central image of the castle itself. And at the center of the chamber floated the nexus, the swirling vortex of magical energy they had glimpsed through Ravenclaw's enchantment, but now directly before them in all its awesome power. Brilliant blue light pulsed at its core, with streams of gold, silver, bronze, and emerald weaving through it in intricate patterns. Around the edges, just as Ravenclaw had shown them, dark fractures disrupted the otherwise beautiful flow. In some places, the magic leaked chaotically, in others, it twisted in unnatural directions. "It's incredible," Hermione whispered, awestruck. "And badly damaged," Harry added, approaching the nexus cautiously. "This is the source of Hogwarts magic, everything from the moving staircases to the room of requirement draws power from here." Ron whistled softly. No wonder the castle's having problems. That looks like someone took a beater's bat to a delicate potion. Harry reached out with his senses, feeling the complex patterns of magic. The nexus responded to his presence, the healthy portions brightening slightly while the damaged areas pulsed erratically. It recognizes you, Hermione observed. What do you need to do? Harry wasn't entirely sure, but again, knowledge seemed to flow from his connection to Hogwarts. I need to rebalance it, harmonize the 4 elemental aspects of the Founder's magic and repair the containment matrix. And how exactly do you do that? Ron asked practically. With help, came a voice from behind them. They turned to find McGonagall entering the chamber, accompanied by Professors Flitwick, Sprout, and Slughorn. The heads of houses, Harry realized. Perfect. McGonagall approached, examining the nexus with keen interest. When the ministry officials retreated to regroup, I thought we might have a brief window to assist you properly. This is extraordinary, I never imagined such a place existed beneath Hogwarts. Few have seen it in centuries, Harry said. But I think I know why you're here. The rebalancing requires representatives of all 4 houses to channel the different aspects of Hogwarts magic. Flitwick nodded enthusiastically. The symbolism is sound. 4 houses, 4 elements, 4 aspects of magic, all brought into harmony through the king as focal point. Precisely, Harry agreed. If you're willing to help, we need to form a circle around the nexus. Each head of house should stand at the position corresponding to their house emblem on the floor. As the professors moved into position, Harry turned to Ron and Hermione. I need you two as well. Ron, you represent the students, the future of Hogwarts. Hermione, you represent knowledge and innovation. What do we do? Hermione asked. Stand on either side of me, Harry instructed. When I begin the ritual, channel your magic toward the nexus, not directly, but through me. I'll serve as the conduit. Once everyone was in position, Harry stepped forward until he stood directly beneath the swirling nexus. The mark on his palm blazed with blue fire that didn't burn, and he felt the crown materialize fully on his head, physically present this time, its weight both unfamiliar and somehow right. Follow my lead, he said, raising his hands toward the nexus. Focus your magic on what your house values most. Harry closed his eyes and opened himself fully to the castle's guidance. Words came to him in a language he didn't recognize but somehow understood, ancient incantations crafted by the founders themselves. As he began to chant, the others joined their magic to his. McGonagall's stern discipline and transformation, Flitwick's creative charm work, Sprout's nurturing growth magic, Slughorn's precise potions mastery, all flowed through Harry toward the nexus. Ron's steadfast loyalty and strategic mind added strength, while Hermione's brilliant analytical magic provided clarity. The nexus responded, its swirling patterns beginning to realign. The fractures slowly closed as Harry directed the combined power with increasingly precise control. It was exhausting work, requiring both raw power and delicate finesse, but the castle itself supported him, helping channel and direct the magic where it was needed most. For nearly an hour they maintained the ritual, sweat beading on everyone's foreheads as they poured magic into the effort. Just as Harry felt his strength beginning to falter, the last major fracture sealed with a flash of golden light. The nexus gave one final pulse, then settled into a stable, harmonious pattern, still powerful and dynamic, but no longer chaotic or damaged. Harry lowered his hands, swaying slightly with exhaustion. Ron and Hermione moved quickly to support him as the crown faded back into its non-physical state. Did it work? Ron asked, looking up at the now peaceful nexus. Yes, Harry said with certainty. The foundation is stable again. Hogwarts is safe. McGonagall approached, looking both impressed and concerned. Well done, Potter. Though I suspect this is only the beginning of your challenges, not the end. As if on cue, the sound of footsteps echoed from the entrance. Minister Blackwood strode in, flanked by unspeakables and DMA officials. His expression shifted from anger to awe as he took in the heart chamber and the glowing nexus. "Minister," Harry acknowledged tiredly. "You're just in time to see that the crisis has been averted." Blackwood stared at the nexus, momentarily speechless. One of the unspeakables pushed forward, magical instruments in hand, taking readings with evident excitement. "Minister, these readings are remarkable. The magical flux has stabilized completely. Whatever Potter did, it worked." Blackwood's expression was conflicted. "That may be, but the manner in which it was done, without authorization, using unknown magic, was necessary and effective," McGonagall interrupted firmly. "As headmistress of Hogwarts, I fully endorsed Mr. Potter's actions, which have undoubtedly saved the school and potentially prevented a magical disaster that could have affected all of Britain." The senior unspeakable nodded in agreement. "She's right, Minister. Our projections suggest that had the nexus fully destabilized, the magical backlash could have affected ley lines across the country. Potter's intervention appears to have been not just warranted but essential." Blackwood looked from the unspeakable to Harry, his political instincts visibly calculating. Finally, he sighed. "It seems I owe you an apology, Mr. Potter. Your actions, while unorthodox, appear to have been both necessary and successful." He straightened his robes. "However, the question of this King of Hogwarts position remains. Such authority cannot simply exist outside our magical governance structure." Harry was too tired to argue politics. "Minister, I don't care about titles or authority. I care about Hogwarts being safe. Now that it is, we can discuss the details at length, after I've had about 12 hours of sleep." Ron snorted. "Make it 24. You look terrible, mate." Hermione gave Blackwood a pointed look. "Minister, Harry has just channeled more magic than most wizards see in a lifetime to save Hogwarts. Surely any further discussions can wait until he's recovered." Blackwood nodded reluctantly. "Very well. A brief respite is reasonable. But this conversation isn't over, Potter. The Wizengamot will need to address this development formally." "I wouldn't expect anything less," Harry replied. "But for now, I think we could all use some rest." As they made their way back through the castle, Harry could feel the difference in Hogwarts immediately. The tremors had stopped completely, and the ambient magic flowed smoothly through the corridors. Portraits whispered as they passed, and even the ghosts seemed to regard Harry with new respect. "So what happens now?" Ron asked as they reached the main hall. "Do you get a throne? Royal robes? Should I start bowing when you enter a room?" Harry laughed despite his exhaustion. "Try it and I'll hex you." "Seriously though," Hermione said, "this changes everything. The magical and political implications alone are enormous." "I know," Harry sighed. "But right now, all I want is food, a hot shower, and sleep, in that order." As they entered the Great Hall, where those who hadn't evacuated were gathering for dinner, conversation stopped. All eyes turned to Harry, and after a moment's hesitation, applause broke out, starting with the students and spreading until the entire hall was cheering. Harry felt his face heat with embarrassment, but Ron clapped him on the shoulder. "Better get used to it, Your Majesty. Saving Hogwarts never gets old around here." Dinner was a subdued affair, with everyone too exhausted for much conversation. Minister Blackwood and his entourage had retreated to the ministry, promising to return the following day with proper protocols for addressing the situation. As Harry finally collapsed into a bed McGonagall had arranged for him in a guest chamber, he felt the castle's presence in his mind, not intrusive, but comforting, like a silent guardian. "What have I gotten myself into this time?" he murmured to the darkness. The castle's response wasn't in words but in feeling, a sense of rightness, of pieces falling into place. Whatever being king of Hogwarts might entail, Harry knew with certainty that Rowena Ravenclaw had chosen correctly. The real challenge would begin tomorrow, when the wizarding world fully realized what had happened. For now, though, Hogwarts was safe, its ancient heart beating steadily once more. And for Harry Potter, that was enough. Chapter 2, The King's Trials. Harry jolted awake to Ron shaking his shoulder. Sunlight streamed through unfamiliar windows, and for a disoriented moment, he couldn't remember where he was. "Mate, you need to get up," Ron said urgently. "The Ministry's back, and they've brought half the Wizengamot with them." Harry groaned, memories of yesterday flooding back, Rowena Ravenclaw's appearance, the magical crisis beneath Hogwarts, and his unexpected coronation as Hogwarts' first king in centuries. "What time is it?" Harry mumbled, reaching for his glasses. "Nearly noon." "You've been out for 14 hours straight." Ron tossed him fresh clothes. "Hermione's been running interference, but Blackwood's getting impatient." Harry swung his legs off the bed, feeling surprisingly refreshed despite yesterday's magical exertion. The mark on his palm, the symbol of his connection to Hogwarts, had faded to a silvery outline that reminded him of a scar, though it didn't hurt at all. "How's the castle?" he asked, pulling on a clean shirt. "Solid as ever," Ron replied. "No more tremors or weird magical accidents. Whatever you did down there really worked." As Harry dressed, he became aware of Hogwarts in his mind, not intrusive, but present, like background music or the sound of distant waves. He could sense people moving through corridors, feel the steady pulse of protective enchantments, even taste the ambient magic in the air. "This is going to take some getting used to," he muttered. Ron raised an eyebrow. "What, the whole king thing?" "Yeah, no kidding. Not just that. I can feel the castle, Ron. All of it, all the time." "Weird," Ron said with typical understatement. "Useful, though. You'll never get lost again." Harry snorted as he pulled on his shoes. "Where's this meeting happening?" "Great Hall." McGonagall insisted, "Neutral ground, plus space for everyone." Ron hesitated, then added, "And Harry? People are treating this like a really big deal." "Bigger than usual, I mean." "Brilliant," Harry sighed. "Just what I needed." As they made their way through the corridors, Harry noticed subtle changes in Hogwarts. The castle felt more responsive, somehow, torches brightening as they approached, doorways widening slightly, stairs holding steady instead of shifting. It was as if the building itself was accommodating him. "The stairs aren't moving," Ron observed. "That's new." "I think they're behaving for me," Harry said, feeling the castle's subtle acknowledgement in his mind. They reached the entrance to the Great Hall and paused. Through the partially open doors, Harry could see a crowd of officials in formal robes, their voices a low murmur of debate. "Ready?" Ron asked. "Not really," Harry admitted. "But when has that ever stopped us?" The moment Harry entered, conversation ceased. Dozens of faces turned toward him, ministry officials, Wizengamot members, professors, and a handful of reporters who'd somehow gained entry. At the head table sat Minister Blackwood, flanked by department heads and senior officials. Hermione broke away from a group of wizards and hurried over. "Finally. They've been waiting for hours." The ministers brought half the ministry to assess the situation. "Meaning they want to figure out how to control it," Harry guessed. "Precisely." Hermione glanced around nervously. "There's something else you should know. Ravenclaw's back, well, sort of." "What do you mean, sort of?" Harry asked. Hermione pointed toward a corner of the hall where a semi-transparent Rowena Ravenclaw stood in conversation with Professor Flitwick. Unlike a normal ghost, she wasn't silver-white but instead appeared as a faded version of her physical self, color still visible but diminished. "She's between states," Hermione explained. "The Convergence's effect is fading, but her connection to you and the castle is keeping her partially corporeal. She says she has maybe a day or two before she returns completely to the spectral realm." Harry nodded, then squared his shoulders and approached the head table. As he walked, he felt the weight of every gaze, some curious, others suspicious or calculating. "Mr. Potter," Blackwood said, standing as Harry reached them. "Thank you for finally joining us." Minister, Harry acknowledged. I understand you have questions. Questions barely begins to cover it, said a severe-looking witch seated beside Blackwood. You've claimed an ancient title that supersedes established magical authority, accessed sealed areas of a national historical landmark, and performed unprecedented magic without ministry oversight. Actually, Harry replied calmly, I didn't claim anything. The position was bestowed by Hogwarts itself, and the magic was necessary to prevent catastrophic damage to the castle and potentially beyond. Yes, about that, Blackwood interjected. Our unspeakables have been examining the situation since yesterday. They confirmed the danger was genuine and your intervention apparently successful. Harry noticed the careful wording. But you're still not convinced about the king part. Blackwood smiled thinly. It's an extraordinary claim, Mr. Potter. One that potentially conflicts with established magical governance. I'm not interested in governance, Minister, Harry said. I'm interested in Hogwarts being safe. Perhaps I can provide some clarity, came Ravenclaw's voice as she glided toward them, her partially corporeal form shimmering slightly. The King of Hogwarts has never been a political position. It's a magical necessity, a steward who can directly access and maintain the castle's foundational enchantments. Blackwood frowned. And yet this steward appears to have authority that supersedes even the headmaster. In matters concerning Hogwarts' fundamental magic, yes, Ravenclaw confirmed. Because that magic requires a direct bond that even the most skilled headmaster cannot achieve without the selection. A tall, aristocratic wizard stood from among the Wisengamot members. The question remains, why Potter? Why now? After centuries without this position, it seems convenient that it reappears for the chosen one. Before Harry could respond, McGonagall stepped forward. Bartholomew, if you're implying Mr. Potter engineered this situation, I remind you that he spent yesterday exhausting himself to save this school while others stood by debating protocols. No one questions Potter's heroics, the wizard replied dismissively. But this goes beyond emergency response. This is a fundamental shift in magical authority. The debate might have continued indefinitely if not for a sudden, brilliant flash of blue light from the entrance hall. Everyone turned as Luna Lovegood walked in, seemingly unconcerned by the commotion she'd caused. Sorry to interrupt, she said dreamily, but the castle's making announcements. What announcements? Blackwood demanded. Luna pointed toward the entrance hall. Words are appearing on the walls. I think Hogwarts is trying to tell Harry something important. Harry exchanged glances with Ron and Hermione, then followed Luna back to the entrance hall. Sure enough, glowing blue letters were materializing across the ancient stone, the selection is complete. The trials commence at dusk. Trials? Ron read. What trials? Ravenclaw glided forward, studying the message. The trials of kingship, she explained. 3 tests to confirm the selection and fully activate the king's bond with Hogwarts. Each king must complete them to access their full authority. And what do these trials entail? Blackwood asked, having followed along with several officials. Knowledge, heart, and strength, Ravenclaw replied. Each trial tests a different aspect of the king's worthiness to command Hogwarts magic. Harry looked at the glowing message, feeling a mixture of resignation and determination. How dangerous are these trials? They've never killed anyone, Ravenclaw said with unsettling ambiguity. Not directly, at least. Wonderful, Harry muttered. Blackwood conferred quietly with his advisors, then turned to Harry. This presents an opportunity, Potter. Complete these trials under ministry observation, and it would go a long way toward legitimizing your position. Harry considered this. Fine. Send whoever you want. But they stay out of the way. I'll be appointing an official observer, Blackwood said. Someone with appropriate credentials who can provide an unbiased assessment. Harry nodded, though he suspected Blackwood's definition of unbiased might differ from his own. If the trials begin at dusk, Hermione interjected practically, we should prepare. Harry needs to understand exactly what he's facing. Agreed, McGonagall said. My office would be suitable for this discussion. As they turned to leave, Blackwood called after them. One moment. Allow me to introduce your official ministry observer. A figure stepped forward from among the ministry contingent, and Harry felt a complex mix of emotions as he recognized the pale, pointed face and white blonde hair. Potter, Draco Malfoy said with a nod that wasn't quite respectful but wasn't hostile either. Malfoy? Ron exclaimed. You're joking. Mr. Malfoy has the appropriate credentials, Blackwood explained. A thorough understanding of Hogwarts, knowledge of ancient wizarding traditions, and, most importantly, a neutral position regarding Mr. Potter personally. Harry might have laughed at that last claim if the situation weren't so serious. His history with Draco was anything but neutral. Fine, Harry said shortly. Malfoy can observe. But just observe. Draco's expression remained carefully blank. I'm here to document, not interfere. The Department of Magical Artifacts and Historic Enchantments requires detailed records of previously unknown magical phenomena. Since when do you work for the Department of Magical Artifacts? Hermione asked suspiciously. Since I completed my mastery in ancient enchantments last year, Draco replied evenly. Some of us had to find legitimate careers after the war, Granger. Before the conversation could devolve further, McGonagall intervened. If that's settled, I suggest we continue this discussion somewhere more private. Mr. Malfoy, you may accompany us. In McGonagall's office, Ravenclaw provided more details about the trials while Draco took meticulous notes with a self-inking quill. The trial of knowledge tests your understanding of Hogwarts itself, its architecture, enchantments, and history, Ravenclaw explained. The trial of heart examines your connection to the school on a deeper level, your motives and emotional resilience. The trial of strength challenges your magical capability and judgment. And how exactly do these trials manifest? Harry asked. The castle decides, Ravenclaw said. Unique to each king, tailored to their specific strengths and weaknesses. That's helpful, Ron muttered. What if I fail? Harry asked the question everyone was thinking. Ravenclaw's expression grew serious. Then the selection seeks another. But failure carries costs, to you and to Hogwarts. The castle has invested significant magic in your bond. Breaking it prematurely could destabilize what you've already repaired. So no pressure, Ron said with forced cheerfulness. Harry ran a hand through his hair. Right. 3 potentially deadly trials with the stability of Hogwarts at stake. Just another Tuesday, really. Draco looked up from his notes. Has it occurred to anyone that these trials might be dangerous to others as well? Hogwarts is still housing students and staff. A valid concern, McGonagall agreed. Perhaps we should complete the evacuation begun yesterday. Harry shook his head. No. Hogwarts would never harm its own. He said this with absolute certainty, feeling the castle's agreement in his mind. The trials will contain themselves to specific areas. And how exactly do you know that, Potter? Draco asked skeptically. Because the castle told me, Harry replied, surprising himself with the statement. Draco raised an eyebrow but continued writing without further comment. Can we at least narrow down where these trials might occur? Hermione asked practically. Harry closed his eyes, focusing on his connection to Hogwarts. Images flashed through his mind, the library's restricted section, the room of requirement, and the edge of the forbidden forest. 3 locations, he said, opening his eyes. They'll start in the library. Then we should head there, Hermione said, already moving toward the door. Dusk isn't far off. As they left McGonagall's office, Harry fell into step beside Draco, who had maintained a careful distance from the others. Why did you really take this assignment, Malfoy? Harry asked quietly. Draco glanced at him. Believe it or not, Potter, this is actually my job. Documenting unusual magical phenomena is what I do now. There's more to it than that. Draco was silent for a moment as they walked. Let's just say I have personal reasons to ensure that ancient magic is properly understood rather than feared or misused. Before Harry could press further, they reached the library, where Madame Pants regarded them with suspicion. The library closes at dusk for inventory, she informed them stiffly. I'm afraid we'll need access this evening, McGonagall told her. Official Hogwarts business. Madame Pants looked like she might object until she noticed the mark on Harry's palm. Her eyes widened slightly. The King's trials, she whispered. I never thought I'd see them in my lifetime. She straightened, suddenly businesslike. Very well. What section will you require? The restricted section, Harry answered, feeling the castle's guidance. Specifically, the northwestern corner. As they entered the familiar territory of the restricted section, Harry noticed changes that hadn't been there before. Ancient tomes that normally stayed chained to the shelves were arranging themselves on a large oak table, opening to specific pages without being touched. That's not normal, right? Ron whispered. Definitely not, Hermione replied, approaching the books cautiously. These texts. Some of them I've never even seen referenced before. Harry felt drawn to the center of the arrangement. As he stepped forward, the mark on his palm tingled, and the book's pages began to flutter as if caught in a gentle breeze. The first trial begins, Ravenclaw announced, her form becoming more transparent as the library grew dimmer with the setting sun. The trial of knowledge. The air shimmered, and a spectral figure materialized, not a ghost, but a magical construct shaped like a robed scholar with features that shifted continuously. King of Hogwarts, the figure intoned in a voice that seemed to come from the books themselves, to command the castle's magic, you must first understand it. Answer 3 questions, each drawn from knowledge hidden within these walls. Harry nodded, feeling unusually calm despite the pressure. I'm ready. The figure gestured to the books, which flipped pages rapidly before settling. First, Hogwarts stands upon the convergence of 7 ley lines. Name them and their magical properties. Harry froze. He had no idea how to answer this. Hermione stepped forward, but the figure raised a hand. Only the king may answer. But the knowledge need not be his alone. The castle offers what is needed, if you know how to ask. Harry looked down at the mark on his palm, then placed his hand flat on the nearest book. Instantly, information flowed into his mind, not just words but images and sensations of powerful magical currents running beneath Hogwarts. The Griffin's Tale, he began, the knowledge unfolding as he spoke, carries transformative magic and strengthens transfiguration work. The Dragon's Breath enhances elemental magic, particularly fire. The Serpent's Path amplifies potions and subtle arts. The Badger's Burrow grounds protective enchantments. The Eagle's Wind elevates charms and flight magic. The Stag's Run reinforces magical barriers against dark forces. And the Phoenix Line. Harry paused, surprised by what he was sensing. The Phoenix Line doesn't enhance specific magic, it balances all the others, preventing any one type from becoming dominant. The spectral figure nodded. Knowledge received. Second question, what are the 5 anchors that bind Hogwarts' outer defenses, and why were they placed as they are? Again, Harry placed his hand on the books, but this time, the information came as a complex spatial diagram in his mind. He found himself conjuring a glowing model in the air between them. The 5 anchors are spelled cornerstones, he explained, indicating points on his floating model. They're not arranged in a regular pentagon as you might expect, but in this asymmetrical pattern that follows the natural magical topography of the land. He rotated the model, showing how the pattern aligned with geographical features around Hogwarts. Each anchor resonates with a different elemental force, but their primary purpose isn't defense, it's containment. They help control the nexus energy beneath the castle, preventing it from affecting the surrounding countryside. The figure inclined its head. Wisdom demonstrated. Final question, what lies at the heart of Hogwarts sorting, and why did the founders choose this method to divide their students? Harry hesitated. This seemed less factual and more interpretive. When he touched the books again, instead of clear information, he received conflicting perspectives and historical debates. He took a deep breath, then spoke from both the knowledge flowing through him and his own experience. The Sorting Hat contains fragments of the founders' consciousness, not their full selves, but echoes of their values and judgment. They chose this method because they knew personal biases would eventually corrupt any human-led sorting process. The hat sees beyond appearances and circumstances to the core qualities of each student. Harry paused, then added something that came not from the books but from his own understanding. But the founders never intended the houses to be as divided as they've become. The hat sorts based on our strongest qualities, but we all contain aspects of each house. The separation was meant to focus education, not create rivalry. There was a long silence after he finished. The spectral figure seemed to be evaluating not just his answer but Harry himself. Knowledge demonstrated, insight offered freely, it finally pronounced. The first trial is complete. The figure dissolved into mist that sank into the books, which closed themselves gently. As the last tome shut, the mark on Harry's palm flared briefly, and he felt a subtle shift in his connection to the castle, as if a door had been unlocked. "One down, 2 to go," Ron said, clapping Harry on the shoulder. Draco was scribbling rapidly in his notebook. "Remarkable. The castle actually transfers knowledge directly to the king during the trial." "Not exactly," Harry corrected. "It shows me where to find it. I still have to understand and articulate it myself." Ravenclaw nodded approvingly. "The distinction is important. The king must be capable of understanding Hogwarts, not merely receiving information passively." Hermione was examining the books with fascination. "These texts contain information I've never seen anywhere else. The historical value alone is incredible." "We can catalog them later," McGonagall said pragmatically. "Where will the second trial take place, Potter?" Harry concentrated on his link with Hogwarts. "The Room of Requirement. It's changed again, adapted for the trial." As they made their way through the corridors, Harry noticed students watching from doorways and around corners, whispering excitedly. News had clearly spread throughout the school. When they reached the 7th-floor corridor, the door to the Room of Requirement was already visible, massive and ornate, carved with scenes from Hogwarts history. "That's new," Harry commented, approaching cautiously. "The castle is more responsive to your needs now," Ravenclaw explained, her form growing fainter as she expended energy to maintain her partial corporeality. "The first trial strengthened your connection." Harry placed his hand on the elaborate door, which swung open soundlessly. The room beyond was nothing like any version he'd seen before, a vast, misty chamber with an otherworldly quality. The floor appeared to be a still pool of water that somehow supported their weight, and the ceiling reflected a night sky filled with constellations he didn't recognize. "The Trial of Heart," Ravenclaw announced softly. "This will be more difficult." "What exactly happens in this one?" Ron asked, looking around nervously. "The room will reveal what lies deepest in the king's heart, fears, regrets, unresolved conflicts. To pass, he must confront them with honesty and courage." "Sounds like a barrel of laughs," Harry muttered. As they moved further into the room, the mist began to coalesce into shapes, shadowy at first, then increasingly solid. Harry recognized the emerging scene with a jolt, the Forbidden Forest during the Battle of Hogwarts, where he had walked to his death. "We should step back," Hermione whispered, recognizing the significance of the location. "This is personal. All observers must remain at the perimeter," confirmed a voice from the mist, neither male nor female, but somehow familiar to Harry. "The Trial of Heart is walked alone." Ravenclaw nodded to the others. "The trial will show you only what Harry chooses to reveal. The rest remains between him and the castle." As his friends retreated to the edge of the room, Harry stepped forward into the misty forest. It felt utterly real, the cool night air, the scent of pine, the distant sounds of battle from the castle. From the mist emerged a figure he'd half expected but dreaded seeing, Albus Dumbledore, exactly as Harry remembered him. "Harry," the figure said warmly. "You've come so far." "You're not really him," Harry said, his voice steadier than he felt. "No," the Dumbledore figure agreed. "I am Hogwarts, using a form your heart recognizes as guidance and authority. We must speak of what troubles you still, years after victory." More figures emerged from the mist, Fred Weasley, Remus and Tonks, Colin Creevey, and dozens of others who had died during the Battle of Hogwarts. "You carry them with you," not Dumbledore observed. "Their deaths. Their sacrifices." "Of course I do," Harry replied, his throat tight. "They died because of me, because I couldn't end it sooner." "Is that truly what you believe?" the figure asked. "Or is it what you fear?" Before Harry could answer, the scene shifted. Now he stood in the Great Hall immediately after Voldemort's defeat. People were celebrating, embracing, crying with relief, but in this version, Harry saw himself standing apart, unable to join in. "You won, but never felt victorious," the Dumbledore figure said gently. "Even now, you carry the weight of those years." "I'm fine," Harry said automatically. "Are you?" "You've never allowed yourself to heal, Harry. You moved from one responsibility to another, first as an Auror, now as king. Always serving, never resting." Harry felt a flash of irritation. "What does this have to do with Hogwarts? With being king?" "Everything," the figure replied simply. "To lead, one must first be whole. To protect others, one must acknowledge one's own wounds." The mist swirled again, and Harry found himself in Dumbledore's office as it had been, the silver instruments whirring, Fawkes on his perch. But the portrait frames on the walls were empty. "You've mastered death, faced monsters, defeated the darkest wizard of the age," not Dumbledore said. "But you've never mastered yourself, Harry. You've never fully accepted your own power, your own worth beyond what you can do for others." The truth of the words struck Harry like a physical blow. He had always defined himself by his usefulness, his ability to protect others. The idea of having worth simply for being himself was almost foreign. "The King of Hogwarts cannot lead from a place of unworthiness," the figure continued. "The castle needs your strength, not your guilt. Your clarity, not your fear." "What am I supposed to do?" Harry asked, a rare vulnerability in his voice. "Just, forget everything that happened? Everyone who died?" "No. Honor them by living fully. Accept that their choices were their own, just as yours were yours." The Dumbledore figure approached, its eyes kind but penetrating. "The question at the heart of this trial is simple: can you accept not just responsibility, but worthiness? Can you be king not from obligation, but from a place of genuine strength?" Harry stood silent, confronting truths he'd avoided for years. The weight of survivors' guilt. The endless sense of responsibility. The difficulty accepting help or care from others. Around him, the misty figures of the fallen watched silently, neither accusing nor comforting, simply present, witnesses to his internal struggle. Finally, Harry spoke. "I can try. That's all I can promise. I'll try to accept that I'm worthy of this. Not just capable, but worthy." The Dumbledore figure smiled. "And that, Harry, is why the selection chose you. Not for your perfect strength, but for your perfect honesty. Your willingness to grow, to acknowledge weakness and still move forward." The mist began to disperse, the figures fading. As Dumbledore vanished, he spoke a final time: "The crown seeks not perfection, but integrity. The trial of heart is complete." The room gradually returned to its empty state, the mist dissolving to reveal Harry standing alone in the center. The mark on his palm glowed softly, then faded to a slightly deeper silver, like a scar catching the light. His friends approached cautiously, unsure what they had witnessed. "You all right, mate?" Ron asked quietly. Harry nodded, feeling both drained and somehow lighter. Yeah. I am. Draco was watching him with an unreadable expression. What exactly did you see, Potter? What I needed to, Harry replied simply. Not what I wanted to. Ravenclaw, now barely visible in the dim light, nodded approvingly. The trial of heart is often the most difficult. It forces truths we hide even from ourselves. The mark has changed, Hermione observed, pointing to Harry's palm. It's more defined now. The bond deepens with each trial, Ravenclaw explained. One remains. Harry felt the castle's pull again. The Forbidden Forest. The trial of strength will take place at the edge of the forest, near Hagrid's hut. As they left the room of requirement, Harry noticed Draco hanging back, his expression troubled. Something on your mind, Malfoy? He asked when the others had moved ahead. Draco hesitated, then spoke quietly. The room changed while you were in there. For each of us, briefly. Showed us, things. Harry raised his eyebrows in surprise. What kind of things? Personal things, Draco replied stiffly. The point is, whatever magic you're tapping into, it's more sentient than any enchantment I've studied. The castle isn't just responding to you, it's evaluating all of us. Harry considered this. Does that concern you? As a ministry observer, I mean. It should concern everyone, Draco said, but without his usual sneer. Power like that, answering to a single person. I don't think it answers to me, Harry corrected. We work together. At least, that's how it feels. Draco studied him for a moment. Just be careful, Potter. Ancient magic often has its own agenda. The warning stayed with Harry as they made their way through the castle and out toward the grounds. Night had fallen completely now, but the path to Hagrid's hut was illuminated by floating lanterns that appeared as they approached. Hagrid himself was waiting, Fong at his side. Harry. Heard you've been having quite the day. King of Hogwarts, eh? Always knew you were destined for great things. Thanks, Hagrid, Harry said, genuinely warmed by his friend's straightforward acceptance. Got a bit of a situation, though, Hagrid continued, looking uncharacteristically serious. Word spread through the forest creatures about these trials. They're waiting. Waiting? Hermione asked. Who's waiting? Hagrid gestured toward the forest edge. See for yourselves. As they approached, Harry saw what Hagrid meant. Gathered at the forest boundary was an astonishing assembly of magical creatures, centaurs in the front, led by Firenze, a delegation of bowtruckles perched on the lower branches, several thestrals standing eerily still in the shadows, and even a small group of unicorns, gleaming silver in the darkness. What are they doing here? Ron whispered. They've come to witness the trial of strength, Ravenclaw explained, her form now so faint she was barely visible. And to renew ancient pacts with Hogwarts through its king. Firenze stepped forward as they approached. Harry Potter. The stars spoke of this moment, though we did not recognize their meaning until now. Harry nodded respectfully. Firenze. I didn't expect an audience for this. The binding of a king affects all magical beings connected to these lands, the centaur replied. The old treaties between Hogwarts and the forest dwellers must be acknowledged by each new monarch. Treaties? Harry looked to Ravenclaw for explanation. The founders established agreements with the magical creatures of the region, she confirmed. Non-interference pacts, mutual aid in times of great danger, boundaries of territory. Over the centuries, without a king to renew them, many fell into neglect or were forgotten entirely. Firenze stamped a hoof. My herd wished me to convey that we expect the ancient boundaries to be respected once more. The forest has shrunk by a seventh since the last king's time. I'll look into that, Harry promised, realizing he had inherited more responsibilities than he'd anticipated. The centaur seemed satisfied and stepped back among his fellows. Other creatures chittered or murmured among themselves, clearly discussing the potential new king. "The trial awaits," Ravenclaw said, gesturing toward an ancient oak tree at the forest's edge. The massive tree was glowing softly with blue-silver light, its branches swaying despite the still night air. As Harry approached, the ground began to tremble, not like the dangerous instabilities of yesterday, but a deliberate, rhythmic vibration. The ancient oak's trunk split open, revealing a doorway filled with swirling golden light. "The trial of strength will test not just your magical power," Ravenclaw cautioned, "but your judgment in using it. Many kings have failed by showing too much force rather than too little." Harry nodded, understanding. Power without restraint was no virtue. Voldemort had taught him that lesson all too well. "What exactly will I face in there?" "A manifestation of threats Hogwarts has endured through the centuries," Ravenclaw replied. "How you counter them will determine your success." Harry squared his shoulders and turned to his friends. "Wait here. This one feels like a solo mission too." "Be careful," Hermione said, hugging him quickly. Ron clapped him on the shoulder. "Don't do anything I wouldn't do." "That leaves plenty of options open," Harry joked, trying to lighten the moment. With a final nod to the assembled creatures and witnesses, Harry stepped through the doorway in the tree. Immediately, the opening sealed behind him, and he found himself in a space that seemed much larger than should have been possible inside a tree, a vast circular arena with walls of living wood and a ceiling open to a star-filled sky. In the center of the arena stood a hooded figure, its features obscured in shadow. As Harry approached, it raised its head. "King of Hogwarts," it intoned in a voice that seemed composed of many others speaking in unison. "Prove your strength." The figure raised its arms, and from the ground rose shadowy forms, a basilisk, acromantulas, dementors, and other creatures that had threatened Hogwarts throughout its history. They circled the arena's perimeter, watching but not yet attacking. "Hogwarts has faced many dangers," the figure continued. "Some from without, some from within. Show us how you would defend her." The basilisk lunged forward first, its massive shadowy form slithering rapidly toward Harry. Instinctively, he raised his wand, ready to cast his most powerful spells, but something made him hesitate. This wasn't a real basilisk, it was a magical construct, a test. And Ravenclaw had warned that excessive force could fail the trial as easily as inadequate defense. Instead of attacking, Harry focused on his connection to Hogwarts. The mark on his palm warmed, and he channeled magic through it, not to destroy the basilisk but to contain it. A glowing barrier formed around the creature, holding it in place without harming it. "Interesting choice," the hooded figure commented. "But one threat contained does not make Hogwarts safe." The acromantulas swarmed next, dozens of shadowy spiders converging from multiple directions. Harry couldn't contain them all individually, so he changed tactics, transforming the arena floor beneath them into a frictionless surface that sent them sliding harmlessly away. One by one, the threats advanced, dementors that Harry repelled not with a Patronus but by creating areas of intense joy and light, a troll that he redirected rather than attacked, specters of dark wizards whose spells he deflected back upon themselves. With each challenge, Harry sought solutions that demonstrated restraint alongside power, protecting Hogwarts without unnecessary destruction, neutralizing threats without excess. Finally, only one shadow remained, a tall, serpentine figure that Harry recognized instantly as Voldemort. The likeness was unsettlingly accurate, from the flat, snake-like face to the way it held its wand. "And what of your greatest enemy?" the hooded figure asked. "How would you protect Hogwarts from such a threat?" The shadow Voldemort raised its wand, mouth opening to cast an unforgivable curse. Harry's combat reflexes screamed at him to strike first, to eliminate the threat before it could harm anyone. But another instinct, deeper, connected to his new bond with Hogwarts, suggested a different approach. Instead of attacking, Harry focused on the castle's defensive magic, drawing it up through the ground beneath the shadow Voldemort. Hogwarts' ancient protections enveloped the figure, not destroying it but simply denying it entry, denying it power. "Voldemort was never defeated by superior force," Harry said quietly. He was defeated by love, by sacrifice, by choices, and by his own arrogance. Hogwarts' strength isn't in destroying enemies but in protecting what matters. The shadow Voldemort struggled against the containment but gradually dissolved into mist. The hooded figure in the center lowered its arms, and all the remaining shadows faded. Strength demonstrated, it pronounced. Not the strength of domination, but of protection. Not the power to destroy, but the wisdom to preserve. The figure pushed back its hood, revealing a face that shifted between the four founders: Ravenclaw's wisdom, Hufflepuff's kindness, Gryffindor's courage, and Slytherin's determination, all visible in succession. The trial of strength is complete. The king is confirmed. A pulse of magic emanated from the figure, washing over Harry in a wave of warmth. The mark on his palm flared brilliantly, then settled into its final form, the Hogwarts H surrounded by the four house symbols, now permanently etched in silver that seemed to shimmer with inner light. The tree trunk split open again, revealing the way out. As Harry stepped through, he felt fundamentally changed, his connection to Hogwarts no longer a new bond but an integral part of his magical self. Outside, the gathered creatures and his friends waited in expectant silence. The moment Harry emerged, a murmur ran through the assembly. "It is done," Firenze announced, reading something in Harry's appearance that wasn't visible to human eyes. "The king is crowned." The magical creatures began to approach one by one, centaurs bowing, bowtruckles offering tiny leaf crowns, thestrals dipping their heads. Each, Harry somehow knew, was acknowledging the renewal of ancient pacts with Hogwarts through him. "What exactly is happening?" Ron whispered to Hermione. "I think they're swearing fealty," she replied, watching in fascination. "Or the magical creature equivalent." When the last creature had made its gesture of recognition, Firenze spoke again. "We will respect the ancient boundaries, King of Hogwarts, and expect the same in return. When the new moon rises, we will send representatives to discuss the treaties in full." Harry nodded, somehow knowing this was the proper response. Hogwarts welcomes its allies. The forest and the castle share these lands as they have for centuries. Satisfied, the creatures began to withdraw into the depths of the forest. Harry turned to his friends, feeling both exhausted and energized by the experience. "So, did I pass?" he asked with a weak smile. "With flying colors, apparently," Ron replied, gesturing to Harry's forehead. "You've got a bit of a glow happening, mate." Hermione conjured a small mirror, and Harry saw what Ron meant. A faint silver circlet, more suggestion than solid object, shimmered around his head, visible only when the light caught it just right. "The crown of Hogwarts," Ravenclaw said, her voice faint as her form continued to fade. "It manifests differently for each king. Yours appears to prefer subtlety." "Suits me fine," Harry replied, relieved he wouldn't be wearing an actual crown. Draco approached, his expression troubled as he made final notes in his journal. "That's the trials complete, then. The ministry will want a full report." "And what will you tell them?" Harry asked directly. Draco met his gaze. "The truth. That ancient magic has established you as King of Hogwarts, with powers and responsibilities that predate ministry authority." He closed his notebook. "And that, based on my observations, the position appears legitimate and your handling of it, appropriate." Coming from Draco Malfoy, this was practically effusive praise. Harry nodded in acknowledgement. "Though I'm obligated to add," Draco continued more formally, "that Minister Blackwood has requested your presence at the ministry tomorrow to discuss the jurisdictional implications." "Of course he has," Harry sighed. As they made their way back toward the castle, Hagrid walking beside them, Harry felt a strange sensation, a magical alert from Hogwarts itself, warning of intrusion. He stopped abruptly. "Something's wrong. Someone's trying to access the sealed areas beneath the East Wing." "How do you know that?" Draco asked sharply. "The castle just told me," Harry replied, already changing direction. "Come on." They hurried across the grounds, Harry following the castle's guidance through corridors and down staircases to a section of the dungeons rarely used even when he'd been a student. The feeling of intrusion grew stronger as they approached. "There shouldn't be anyone down here," McGonagall said, having joined them en route. This section was sealed after water damage last winter. They turned a corner and found themselves facing a massive hole in the floor where smooth stone had been blasted away, revealing rough-hewn steps descending into darkness. The edges of the hole showed signs of deliberate excavation, not collapse. "Someone's been digging," Ron observed unnecessarily. Harry lit his wand and approached the edge cautiously. "This goes deep, much deeper than the normal dungeons." Ravenclaw, now barely visible even in the wand light, drifted closer. "This area lies directly above one of the secondary nexus chambers. A smaller concentration of magical energy, but still significant." "Why would someone be tunneling toward it?" Hermione asked. Harry's expression hardened. "Let's find out." He led the way down the rough-cut stairs, the others following closely. The passage wound downward for nearly 100 feet before opening into a crude chamber where the excavation was clearly ongoing. Magical tools lay scattered about, self-digging picks, automated stone-cutting spells anchored to floating crystals, and what appeared to be specialized magical detection equipment. "This is ministry-grade magical excavation gear," Draco said, examining one of the devices. "High security clearance required." Harry moved to a small table where maps and parchments were spread out. "Look at this. They've mapped the magical currents beneath Hogwarts, not accurately, but close enough to locate the secondary nexus points." Hermione joined him, scanning the documents quickly. "These are signed by Minister Blackwood himself. Project Wellspring, it looks like they've been secretly excavating for months." "But why?" Ron asked. "What would the Ministry want with Hogwarts magic?" "Power," Ravenclaw said simply, her voice barely audible as her form continued to fade. "The magic beneath Hogwarts represents one of Britain's largest concentrations of raw magical energy. If tapped and redirected, it could provide unprecedented magical resources," Draco finished, looking troubled. "The Ministry's been facing pressure to find new sources of magical energy for years. Certain enchantments are becoming harder to maintain as magical pollution increases." Harry felt a surge of anger. "So Blackwood's been secretly mining Hogwarts magic while pretending to be concerned about my connection to it. No wonder he was so opposed to the King of Hogwarts' position returning, he didn't want anyone who could detect these operations." A noise from the passage alerted them to newcomers. They quickly extinguished their lights and concealed themselves among the excavation equipment. Two wizards in unmarked robes entered, engaged in quiet conversation. "Said to accelerate the timeline. With Potter somehow accessing the castle's magic, we need to establish the primary tap before he discovers what we're doing. The drilling enchantment needs another day at least. We can't rush magical extraction without risking contamination. Minister's orders. He wants the first collection vessels in place by tomorrow night." Harry had heard enough. He stepped forward, the mark on his palm glowing brightly in the darkness. "I'm afraid that won't be happening." The wizards spun, wands raised, but froze when they saw who had spoken. "Mr. Potter," one managed, clearly recognizing him despite the strange silver glow around his head. "This is a restricted ministry operation." "You're not authorized." "No," Harry interrupted coldly. "You're not authorized. This excavation ends now." The second wizard attempted to cast a stunning spell, but it dissipated harmlessly before reaching Harry. The wizard stared in disbelief. "Hogwarts protects its king," Harry said simply. With a gesture, the magical excavation equipment shut down, the enchanted picks falling lifeless to the ground. McGonagall stepped forward. "As headmistress of Hogwarts, I'm ordering both of you off school grounds immediately. Expect formal complaints to be filed with the Wisengamot regarding this unauthorized intrusion." The wizards exchanged glances, clearly weighing their options. After a tense moment, they lowered their wands. Minister Blackwood will hear about this, one warned. I'm counting on it, Harry replied. After the workers had been escorted out by McGonagall and Hagrid, Harry examined the excavation more thoroughly. The tunnel had nearly reached a glowing blue vein of magic visible through the thin remaining stone, one of the secondary nexus channels Ravenclaw had mentioned. If they had breached that containment, Harry began. It wouldn't have been catastrophic like the main nexus failing, Ravenclaw said, but it would have caused significant magical disruption throughout this wing of the castle. And once tapped, the energy would have been diverted away from Hogwarts' needs. Draco was unusually quiet, examining the ministry documents with a troubled expression. Did you know about this, Malfoy? Ron asked accusingly. Draco shook his head. No. This isn't my department. But. He hesitated, then continued reluctantly, there have been rumors about Project Wellspring. Most assumed it was theoretical research into new magical energy sources, not active extraction. Well, now we know why Blackwood was so eager to contain the situation yesterday, Hermione said bitterly. He wasn't concerned about Hogwarts, he was worried about his secret mining operation being discovered. Harry felt the castle's agitation through their bond, a sense of violation and unease. There could be more excavation sites. The castle feels unsettled. We should conduct a thorough search, McGonagall agreed when she returned. If they've compromised other areas. Harry nodded. I can help with that. The castle can show me where the intrusions are located. Draco cleared his throat. I should report this to my department head. This goes well beyond my observer role. And say what exactly? Ron challenged. That your boss is secretly trying to drain Hogwarts magic. That unauthorized excavation risks destabilizing historically significant magical structures, Draco replied evenly. My department's mandate includes protecting magical heritage sites. This clearly qualifies. Harry studied Draco for a moment, then nodded. Do what you need to do, Malfoy. Just be careful who you trust at the ministry right now. As they made their way back to the main castle, Harry felt the completion of the trials taking full effect. His awareness of Hogwarts had expanded dramatically, he could sense the location of every person within the walls, feel the state of the protective enchantments, even perceive the ambient magic flowing through the corridors. Harry? Hermione asked, noticing his distraction. Are you all right? Just adjusting, he replied. It's like suddenly having an extra sense. I can feel everything in the castle. Everything? Ron asked skeptically. Not thoughts or anything that specific, Harry clarified. But locations, movements, the general state of things. It's overwhelming, but also. He searched for the right word, right, somehow. Like this connection was always meant to be there. They reached the entrance hall to find a delegation of ministry officials waiting, led by a harried-looking Percy Weasley. Harry, Percy greeted him stiffly. The minister has requested, insisted, really, on your immediate presence at the ministry to discuss recent developments. I bet he has, Harry replied dryly. Tell him I'll be there tomorrow morning. Tonight, I need to secure Hogwarts against further unauthorized intrusions. Percy looked uncomfortable. He was quite adamant about immediately. Percy, Ron interrupted, we've just discovered secret ministry tunnels being dug under Hogwarts to steal its magic. So maybe take a message back to your boss that Harry's a bit busy right now preventing magical catastrophe. Again. Percy blinked in shock. What tunnels? What are you talking about? Ask Blackwood about Project Wellspring, Hermione suggested. See how he responds. Percy looked between them, clearly conflicted between loyalty to the minister and concern about what they were suggesting. I'll inform him you'll be arriving tomorrow morning, he finally decided. But I strongly advise not delaying further. After the ministry delegation departed, Harry turned to his friends. We need to find all the excavation sites and secure them tonight. Blackwood will be looking to cover his tracks as soon as he realizes we've found one tunnel. I can help with that, came Ravenclaw's voice, now so faint they could barely hear her. But my time grows very short. The convergence's effect is nearly gone. What can we do? Harry asked urgently. Take me to the heart chamber once more, she requested. I can transfer my remaining knowledge directly to the castle's memory, where you can access it when needed. As they made their way toward the Founder's chamber and the passage to the heart below, Ravenclaw grew increasingly transparent. By the time they reached the hidden staircase, she was barely visible even in the dim torchlight. Hurry, she whispered. I can feel myself being pulled back to the spectral realm. In the heart chamber, the nexus pulsed with healthy blue light, its earlier damage completely healed. Ravenclaw drifted toward it, her form beginning to dissolve around the edges. Harry Potter, she said, her voice strengthening momentarily through proximity to the magical core. You have exceeded my hopes for the new king of Hogwarts. Now I must leave you with a final warning. Harry stepped closer. I'm listening. Blackwood's interest in Hogwarts magic is not purely practical. The Nexus contains knowledge as well as power, secrets the Founders embedded within the magical current itself. Secrets some would do anything to possess. What kind of secrets? Hermione asked. Spells lost to time. Magical processes we deemed too dangerous for common knowledge. The Nexus is a repository of the Founders' greatest works, both wondrous and terrible. Harry felt the weight of this revelation. And Blackwood knows this? He suspects, Ravenclaw corrected. Ancient texts reference the Founders' legacy hidden within Hogwarts. Most assume it means the Chamber of Secrets or other physical locations, but the true legacy is woven into the magic itself. She turned to the Nexus, her form now barely distinguishable from the magical energy surrounding her. I must go. The castle will guide you to the excavation sites. Trust in what the trials have taught you, Harry Potter. You are king not because of power, but because of judgment. With those final words, Ravenclaw's form dissolved completely, merging with the swirling energies of the Nexus. For a brief moment, the blue light took on a hint of bronze, then returned to its natural state. She's gone, Hermione said softly. Harry nodded, feeling both loss and resolve. But not completely. The castle remembers her now. And so do we. He turned to his friends, his expression determined. Let's find those tunnels and stop Blackwood before he does any more damage. Throughout the night, guided by Harry's enhanced connection to Hogwarts, they discovered 3 more excavation sites, one near the lake, another beneath the astronomy tower, and a third approaching from the edge of the Forbidden Forest. Each had been carefully concealed, but to Harry's new senses, they stood out like beacons of intrusion. With McGonagall's authority and Harry's newfound powers, they sealed the tunnels and removed the excavation equipment, cataloging everything as evidence for the inevitable confrontation with the Ministry. By dawn, Hogwarts was secure again. Harry stood on the astronomy tower, watching the sunrise paint the grounds in golden light. He could feel the castle's contentment through their bond, a sense of rightness and security that had been missing before. Ron and Hermione joined him, looking equally exhausted but satisfied. So, Ron said, leaning against the parapet. King of Hogwarts. Completed the trials. Discovered a conspiracy. Not bad for your first day on the job. Harry smiled tiredly. And today I get to face Blackwood and explain why I've shut down his secret magical mining operation. Should be fun. You won't face him alone, Hermione assured him. McGonagall's already contacted the Board of Governors. And with Draco's department potentially on our side. Blackwood's powerful, but not invincible, Ron agreed. Percy looked properly horrified when I mentioned the tunnels. Once word gets out about what they were doing without authorization. Harry nodded, though he suspected the political battle ahead would be just as challenging as the magical trials he'd already faced. Whatever happens with Blackwood, he said, looking out over the castle grounds, Hogwarts is safe. And as long as I'm king, it's going to stay that way. The mark on his palm glowed softly in agreement, and Harry felt the crown's subtle presence shimmer around his head. The trials were complete, but his journey as King of Hogwarts was just beginning. Chapter 3, The Castle's Heart. Harry stepped out of the fireplace in the Ministry of Magic, brushing soot from his robes. The atrium buzzed with the usual morning activity, witches and wizards hurrying to their departments, memos flying overhead, the fountain bubbling in the center. But as people noticed Harry, conversations halted, replaced by hushed whispers and pointing. "Subtle," Ron muttered, emerging from the fireplace behind him. "You'd think they'd never seen the boy who lived before." "It's not that," Hermione said, appearing last and straightening her professional ministry robes. "Look at his forehead." Harry reached up self-consciously. The ethereal crown was more visible today, a faint silver circlet that shimmered when he moved. He'd hoped it wouldn't be so noticeable outside Hogwarts. Great. Just what I needed, another thing on my head for people to stare at. A familiar figure approached through the crowd, Kingsley Shacklebolt, his tall frame and colorful robes distinctive even from a distance. Though no longer minister, he still commanded respect at the ministry as head of magical law enforcement. "Harry," he greeted warmly. "I thought I might find you here today. Word travels fast." "Kingsley," Harry shook his hand. "I'm guessing you've heard about yesterday's excitement." "Parts of it," Kingsley replied, his deep voice lowered. "Enough to know Minister Blackwood called an emergency session of department heads at dawn. Whatever you discovered has him rattled." Hermione glanced around the busy atrium. "We should talk somewhere private." Kingsley nodded. "My office." "This way." As they followed him toward the lifts, Harry noticed ministry security wizards watching them intently. Not overtly hostile, but definitely alert. "We're being monitored," he murmured. "Since the moment you arrived," Kingsley confirmed. "Blackwood has the entire security division on high alert. Officially for a potential magical containment situation." "That's rich," Ron scoffed. "Considering he's the one who nearly caused one." In Kingsley's office, Harry quickly explained everything: Ravenclaw's appearance, the King's trials, and their discovery of Project Wellspring's tunnels beneath Hogwarts. Kingsley's expression grew increasingly grave. "Unauthorized extraction of magical energy from a historical site like Hogwarts, it's not just unethical, it's explicitly prohibited by at least 3 different magical protection acts." "We have evidence," Hermione said, producing a shrunken box from her pocket and restoring it to full size. "Excavation plans signed by Blackwood himself, magical drilling equipment, and records of projected energy yields." Kingsley examined the documents with a practiced eye. "This is damning. But Blackwood won't go down without a fight." "I'm counting on it," Harry said, the mark on his palm glowing faintly. "I didn't come here to negotiate. I came to shut him down." "Bold words, Potter," came a voice from the doorway. Draco Malfoy stood there, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. "But you might need to move faster. Blackwood's called for your immediate detention pending a full investigation of magical interference at Hogwarts." "Detention?" Ron exclaimed. "On what grounds?" "Unauthorized use of ancient magic, endangering a historical site, and, my personal favorite, impersonating a magical authority figure," Draco replied dryly. "They're claiming the King of Hogwarts position doesn't legally exist." Harry wasn't surprised. "How long do we have?" "Minutes, maybe," Draco said. "My department head delayed the security team by insisting on proper documentation, but they're on their way." "Then we need to move," Kingsley decided, gathering the evidence. "The Wizengamot needs to see this before Blackwood can spin his narrative." Harry shook his head. "You take it to the Wizengamot." "I'm going straight to Blackwood." "Harry, that's exactly what he wants," Hermione protested. "Good. Because I want to face him too." Harry's eyes flashed with determination. "This ends today, one way or another." Kingsley considered him for a moment, then nodded. The minister's office, 10th floor. I'll alert my most trusted aurors to stand by. I'm coming with you, Ron said immediately. We both are, Hermione added. Draco cleared his throat. I should return to my department. Maintain the appearance of following orders while misplacing certain detention documents. Harry looked at him with newfound respect. Thanks, Malfoy. Don't thank me yet, Potter. Draco straightened his robes. Just try not to destroy the ministry. Some of us still work here. They split up, Kingsley heading toward the Wisengamot chambers while Harry, Ron, and Hermione took a service lift toward the minister's office. Harry could feel the castle's magic still with him even at this distance, a warm presence in his mind, strengthening his resolve. What's the plan exactly? Ron asked as the lift ascended. Confront Blackwood with what we know. Force him to explain himself in front of witnesses, Harry replied. And if he refuses? Or tries to have you arrested on the spot? Hermione pressed. Harry smiled grimly. Then I guess we find out just how far this King of Hogwarts magic extends beyond the castle walls. The lift doors opened onto the 10th floor, revealing a corridor lined with ornate doors leading to senior officials' offices. At the end stood a magnificent set of double doors marked with the minister's seal. 2 security wizards stood guard, immediately tensing when they spotted Harry. Mr. Potter, one called. The minister left strict instructions. Harry didn't slow down. I'm sure he did. Tell him Harry Potter, King of Hogwarts, requests an immediate audience. The guards exchanged uncertain glances, clearly not prepared for Harry's direct approach. Before they could decide how to respond, the doors swung open from within. Minister Blackwood stood there, impeccably dressed in formal robes of deep blue, his expression a careful mask of politeness. Mr. Potter. What a surprise. His tone suggested it was anything but. I was just about to send for you. I bet you were, Harry replied evenly. We need to talk about Project Wellspring. A flicker of unease crossed Blackwood's face, quickly suppressed. Of course. Please, come in. He stepped aside, allowing Harry, Ron, and Hermione to enter his spacious office. Inside, Harry was surprised to find not just Blackwood's usual advisors, but also Percy Weasley and several members of the Hogwarts Board of Governors, including Lucius Malfoy. Quite the gathering, Harry observed. Planning something special? An emergency session regarding Hogwarts, Blackwood replied smoothly. Which your arrival makes all the more timely. Lucius Malfoy studied Harry with cold calculation, his eyes lingering on the ethereal crown. So it's true. The King of Hogwarts has returned. It is, Harry confirmed. And my first act was stopping your minister from secretly draining Hogwarts' magical energy. A murmur ran through the room. Percy looked particularly uncomfortable, shooting an apologetic glance at Ron. A serious accusation, Blackwood said, his voice hardening. And entirely without context. Project Wellspring is a ministry initiative researching sustainable magical energy sources for the future benefit of all wizardkind. By drilling unauthorized tunnels under a school. Hermione challenged. Without the knowledge of the headmistress or the Board of Governors. One of the governors, an elderly which Harry didn't recognize, turned to Blackwood with evident anger. Is this true, Minister? Excavations at Hogwarts without board approval? Preliminary research only, Blackwood insisted. Non-invasive magical assessment, liar, Harry interrupted flatly. We found your tunnels. 4 of them, all approaching secondary nexus points. We recovered your equipment, your plans, and your projected extraction figures. Blackwood's facade of reasonableness began to crack. Whatever you found has been misinterpreted. And your interference in ministry operations is precisely why we're here today. He gestured to his assistant, who distributed folders to everyone in the room. A complete analysis of the so-called King of Hogwarts position, conducted by our legal and historical experts. Their conclusion is clear: this title holds no legal standing in modern wizarding governance. Of course it doesn't, Harry agreed, surprising Blackwood. It predates your governance by centuries. The King of Hogwarts isn't a ministry position, it's a magical bond with the castle itself. Semantics, Blackwood dismissed. The fact remains, Potter, that you've assumed authority you don't legally possess. The ministry remains the ultimate authority over magical Britain, including Hogwarts. Harry felt the crown's magic warm against his temples, and he knew exactly what to say. Hogwarts existed before the ministry, Minister Blackwood. It will exist long after. The founders established protections to ensure the school's independence precisely to prevent what you're attempting, using Hogwarts as a resource to be exploited for political gain. Pretty words, Lucius Malfoy interjected. But ultimately meaningless without legal foundation. The door opened again, and Kingsley entered, followed by Augusta Longbottom and several other senior Wizengamot members. Perhaps this will provide the foundation you require, Kingsley said, placing a stack of documents on Blackwood's desk. Project Wellspring's complete files, including orders for magical extraction signed by you personally, Minister, all in direct violation of the Heritage Sites Magical Protection Act of 1832, the Educational Institutions Autonomy Charter, and the Founders' Trust established by the First Ministry of Magic itself. Augusta Longbottom stepped forward, her imposing presence commanding attention despite her age. The Wizengamot has called for an immediate investigation. Minister Blackwood, you are requested to present yourself for questioning within the hour. Blackwood's composure finally broke. This is absurd. A political coup orchestrated by Potter and his allies. No, Harry said calmly. This is what happens when you try to steal from Hogwarts. Blackwood's eyes narrowed. You have no idea what you're interfering with, Potter. The magical energy beneath Hogwarts is more than just power, it's knowledge, secrets the wizarding world desperately needs in these times. Ravenclaw warned me about this, Harry replied. You're not after energy. You're after the Founders' legacy, their hidden knowledge embedded in the nexus. Knowledge that belongs to all wizard kind. Blackwood insisted. Not locked away under a school, accessible only to those with special status like yourself. Knowledge that was hidden for good reason, Harry countered. Some magic isn't meant to be used casually or controlled by governments. Blackwood laughed bitterly. And you, barely 20 years old, presume to make that judgment? To decide what magic the ministry can or cannot access. Not me, Harry corrected. The Founders. And Hogwarts itself. The tension in the room was palpable. Percy looked between Blackwood and Harry, clearly torn between loyalty to his minister and the obvious evidence against him. Minister, he finally said, I think we need to address these allegations directly. If unauthorized excavation did occur, silence, Weasley, Blackwood snapped. This matter goes beyond simple politics. He turned back to Harry, his expression darkening. You've made a serious miscalculation, Potter. Did you really think I would attempt something as significant as accessing the nexus without precautions? With a quick movement, Blackwood drew his wand and tapped a small silver device on his desk. Immediately, a shimmering barrier formed around him, and alarm bells began to sound throughout the ministry. Security Protocol Gamma activated, announced a magical voice throughout the building. All personnel to emergency positions. This is not a drill. What have you done? Demanded Augusta Longbottom. Secured my position, Blackwood replied coldly. Until this crisis is resolved, emergency powers allow me to maintain order as I see fit. Including detaining those who threaten magical security. The doors burst open as a dozen security wizards entered, wands drawn. Detain Potter and his associates, Blackwood ordered. They've interfered with critical magical infrastructure and pose an ongoing threat. Harry felt the crown's magic surge in response to the threat. The mark on his palm glowed brilliantly, and he raised his hand almost instinctively. I wouldn't, he warned quietly. The security wizards hesitated, noticing the strange silver light now emanating from Harry. "This is your last chance, Minister," Harry said. "End this peacefully. Submit to the Wisengamot's investigation." Blackwood's face contorted with rage. "Seize him. Now." The security wizards moved forward, but Harry was faster. Drawing on the castle's magic still flowing through his bond, he created a shield unlike any he'd cast before, not the usual transparent barrier of a protego, but an intricate lattice of silver-blue energy that expanded to protect not just himself but Ron and Hermione as well. The first stunning spells hit the shield and dissipated harmlessly, their energy absorbed and redistributed through the magical pattern. "Impressive," Lucius Malfoy commented, stepping back to a safer distance. "The king's magic is real, it seems." "This doesn't need to escalate," Harry called to the security wizards, many of whom were now looking uncertainly at their minister. "Your oath is to magical Britain, not to Blackwood personally." One of the older guards lowered his wand. "He's right, Minister. If there's to be a Wisengamot investigation, there will be no investigation." Blackwood shouted, his calm facade completely gone. "Potter has corrupted the process with his influence. This is nothing but a power grab disguised as justice." With a sudden, violent movement, Blackwood cast a spell not at Harry but at the floor beneath him. The marble cracked and exploded upward, forcing Harry to redirect his shield to protect everyone from flying debris. In the confusion, Blackwood touched his wand to the silver device again and vanished, a Ministry emergency port key activation that shouldn't have been possible through the building's anti-transportation wards. "He's running," Kingsley said unnecessarily, already moving toward the door. "I'll alert all exit points." "No need," Harry replied, his eyes unfocused as he concentrated on his connection to Hogwarts. "I know exactly where he's going." Ron stared at him. "How could you possibly?" "Because the castle just told me," Harry explained grimly. "Blackwood's activated something at Hogwarts, some kind of magical device connected to the nexus. I can feel it pulling on the castle's magic." Hermione paled. "If he can't extract the magic legally, he'll take it by force," Harry finished. "We need to get back to Hogwarts. Now." Augusta Longbottom stepped forward. "The Ministry's emergency floors are locked down during Security Protocol Gamma, but the Wisengamot maintains independent access. This way." As they hurried through the corridors, the Ministry in chaos around them, Harry felt the castle's distress growing stronger. Whatever Blackwood had activated was causing real damage to the magical foundations they just repaired. The Wisengamot's private flu allowed them to bypass the lockdown, emerging directly into McGonagall's office at Hogwarts. The headmistress was already there, her expression grave. "Potter, thank goodness. Something's happening in the heart chamber. The castle's protections are failing, and I can't access the lower levels." Harry nodded, already moving toward the door. "Blackwood's made his move. He must have installed some kind of extraction device before we discovered the tunnels. But how would he activate it from the Ministry?" Hermione asked as they raced through the corridors. The silver device on his desk, Ron realized. It wasn't just a port key trigger, it was a remote activator. They reached the entrance to the Founder's chamber in record time, Harry's connection to the castle creating the most direct route automatically. But the massive door that had opened to his touch before was now sealed with pulsing red energy that repelled his attempts to approach. "He's locked us out somehow," Harry said, frustration evident in his voice. "Corrupted the recognition magic." McGonagall examined the magical barrier. "This is advanced curse work. Breaking through could take hours, even with your connection to the castle." Harry felt the mark on his palm burn with urgent warning. "We don't have hours. Whatever Blackwood's device is doing, it's accelerating. The nexus is becoming unstable." As if to emphasize his point, a tremor shook the castle, stronger than any they'd felt during the original crisis. "There must be another way in," Hermione insisted. "The castle has dozens of secret passages. Surely one leads to the heart chamber." Harry closed his eyes, concentrating on his bond with Hogwarts. The castle's magic responded, showing him not passages but something else entirely. Not a passage, he murmured, opening his eyes. But a connection. The 4 houses, they each have a direct link to the heart chamber through their common rooms. Emergency access points established by the founders themselves. Of course, McGonagall realized. Each founder would want direct access from their house. Gryffindor's closest, Harry decided. Let's go. In the Gryffindor common room, startled students watched as Harry approached the massive fireplace. Following the castle's guidance, he placed his palm against a specific stone bearing a faded lion carving almost invisible with age. As King of Hogwarts, I request passage to the heart, he stated clearly. The fireplace shuddered, then sank into the floor, revealing a narrow spiral staircase descending into darkness. Stay here, Harry told the curious students gathering around. If this works, you'll never know anything happened. If it doesn't. He hesitated. If it doesn't, get everyone out of the castle, Hermione finished firmly. As far from the grounds as possible. Ron gave his former housemates a reassuring grin that didn't reach his eyes. Just another day saving Hogwarts. Nothing to worry about. The staircase wound deep beneath the castle, eventually connecting to a narrow passage that sloped steeply downward. As they descended, Harry could feel the disruption growing stronger, a wrongness in the magical current that made his teeth ache and the crown's energy flicker erratically. We're close, he whispered, though he wasn't sure why he felt the need for quiet. The heart chamber is just ahead, but someone's altered the approach. Where the passage should have opened directly into the chamber, they instead found a hastily constructed antechamber filled with complex magical equipment. Crystalline devices pulsed with stolen energy, channeling it into collection vessels that glowed an unnatural purple. And in the center stood Minister Blackwood, his wand connected by a stream of golden energy to a spinning orb hovering above a pedestal. I was wondering when you'd arrive, Potter, he called without turning. Your connection to the castle is impressive, but predictable. Stop this, Blackwood, Harry demanded, stepping into the room with his wand ready. You're destabilizing the entire magical foundation of Hogwarts. Blackwood finally turned, and Harry was shocked by his appearance. The minister's eyes glowed with the same purple light as the collection vessels, and veins of magic pulsed visibly beneath his skin. Destabilizing? No, Potter. I'm fulfilling what the founders began. He gestured to the spinning orb. This is the true founder's legacy, not just raw magic, but distilled knowledge. Spells and secrets they embedded in the nexus itself. Knowledge they deliberately hid, Harry countered, slowly moving forward while Ron and Hermione spread out to flank Blackwood. You're not supposed to access it this way. Blackwood laughed, the sound unnaturally resonant. Said the boy to whom unlimited magical authority was simply handed. Do you even understand what you've been given? What the King of Hogwarts truly controls? I'm beginning to, Harry replied honestly. It's not about control. It's about protection. A child's understanding, Blackwood dismissed. The founders created the most powerful magical repository in Britain, then locked it away behind children's riddles and moral tests. Think of what wizard kind could achieve with this power properly harnessed. Another tremor shook the chamber, stronger than before. Dust and small stones fell from the ceiling. Your proper harnessing is tearing Hogwarts apart, McGonagall said sharply. Whatever you think you're achieving, it won't matter if the castle collapses around us. A temporary instability, Blackwood insisted, though uncertainty flickered across his face. Once the primary extraction is complete, it will never be complete, Harry interrupted. The nexus isn't a resource to be drained. It's a living magical ecosystem. What you're doing is like trying to bottle an ocean, you're just creating a flood. As if responding to his words, the spinning orb suddenly pulsed erratically, and one of the collection vessels shattered, releasing a wave of wild magic that scorched the nearby wall. Blackwood flinched but didn't abandon his position. It just needs proper containment. More refined receptacles, Minister Blackwood, Hermione said, her voice surprisingly gentle, you're not well. The raw magic is affecting your judgment. Please, step away from the extractor before it's too late. For a moment, Blackwood seemed to consider her words, the purple glow in his eyes dimming slightly. Then his expression hardened again. No. I've come too far. The secrets are almost mine. He raised his wand higher, channeling more energy into the orb. I can feel them unfolding, spells that could revolutionize our world. The chamber shook violently, and a large crack appeared in the wall separating them from the heart chamber itself. Through it, Harry could see the nexus pulsing erratically, its usual blue glow now shot through with angry purple streaks. Hermione, Ron, get McGonagall out of here, Harry ordered, the crown manifesting fully around his head as he drew on Hogwarts magic. This is about to get dangerous. We're not leaving you, Ron said firmly. I need you to secure the castle, Harry insisted. If this goes wrong, someone needs to lead the evacuation. Please. Hermione looked ready to argue but stopped when she saw the determination in Harry's eyes. Be careful, she finally said. Always am, Harry replied with a brief smile that didn't reach his eyes. As they reluctantly withdrew, Harry turned his full attention to Blackwood and the extraction apparatus. The mark on his palm blazed with silver fire as he reached out to the castle's magic, seeking guidance. Last chance, Minister, he offered. Shut it down willingly. You don't command me, Potter, Blackwood snarled, the purple glow in his eyes intensifying. I am the Minister of Magic. The highest magical authority in Britain. Not in Hogwarts, Harry replied quietly. Not anymore. With those words, he thrust his marked palm toward the nexus visible through the cracked wall. Instantly, a surge of pure silver-blue magic erupted from the crack, bypassing Blackwood's extractors and flowing directly into Harry. The sensation was overwhelming, like being filled with liquid lightning. Harry's vision went white, then expanded to encompass the entire castle at once. He could see every room, every corridor, every student and teacher within the walls. More than that, he could feel the complex web of enchantments that made Hogwarts what it was, moving staircases, disappearing steps, living portraits, all connected in an intricate magical ecosystem. And at the center, the wounded nexus, struggling against Blackwood's intrusion. With his enhanced awareness, Harry could see exactly what the minister had done. The extraction device wasn't just draining energy, it was attempting to decode and extract specific magical patterns embedded within the nexus. The Founder's hidden spells, their most closely guarded secrets. But Blackwood hadn't understood the protection surrounding that knowledge. Each attempt to extract a spell triggered cascading security measures that destabilized the entire system. Enough, Harry said, his voice echoing with the castle's own magic. He gestured toward Blackwood's equipment, and silver fire erupted from his palm, engulfing the extraction apparatus. Blackwood screamed in rage, firing a barrage of spells at Harry that dissipated harmlessly against the crown's protection. You fool! Do you know what you're destroying? Knowledge that could elevate wizardkind to heights not seen since Merlin's time. Knowledge that was hidden for a reason, Harry countered, continuing to dismantle the extraction system. The Founders weren't trying to limit progress, they were preventing catastrophe. As the apparatus began to fail, the orb spinning wildly out of control, Blackwood made a desperate lunge toward one of the remaining collection vessels. If I can just save this portion, no. Harry shouted, but too late. Blackwood seized the vessel, but the unstable magic within reacted violently to his touch. Purple energy surged up his arm, engulfing him in crackling power. His scream cut off abruptly as the magic lifted him from the ground, suspending him in a cocoon of wild energy. Help me, he gasped, the purple glow in his eyes now flickering with fear. Harry didn't hesitate. Despite everything Blackwood had done, he couldn't stand by and watch him be consumed by uncontrolled magic. Reaching out with both his wand and the marked palm, he attempted to draw the wild magic away from Blackwood and into himself. The pain was immediate and searing, like trying to channel a lightning storm through his body. But the castle supported him, its magic flowing through the crown to help contain the dangerous energy. Slowly, the purple cocoon around Blackwood began to dissipate, the wild magic flowing into Harry instead. When the last of it had been absorbed, Blackwood collapsed to the floor, unconscious but alive. Harry staggered, his entire body trembling with the effort of containing the unstable energy. He couldn't hold it for long, it needed to be released safely or it would tear him apart from within. The nexus. With the last of his strength, Harry turned toward the crack in the wall, now widened by the magical disturbance. Beyond, the heart of Hogwarts pulsed erratically, still damaged by Blackwood's extraction. Harry stepped through the opening, directly into the heart chamber. The nexus roiled before him, its usual harmony disrupted by streaks of purple contamination. "Please," Harry whispered to the castle. "Help me fix this." The crown flared in response, and Harry felt the castle's guidance, not in words, but in pure magical intuition. He raised both hands toward the nexus and released the contained energy in a controlled stream, not back into the nexus itself, but into the damaged containment matrix surrounding it. The wild magic he'd absorbed from Blackwood, originally stolen from Hogwarts, flowed back into the protective enchantments, repairing and strengthening them rather than rejoining the volatile center. As the last of the energy left him, Harry fell to his knees, utterly spent. But he could feel the difference immediately. The nexus was stabilizing, its color returning to the healthy blue it had been after the trials. The containment matrix glowed with renewed strength, the damage from Blackwood's extraction healing before his eyes. Harry wasn't sure how long he knelt there, watching the nexus return to its proper state. It could have been minutes or hours. He was vaguely aware of voices and movement behind him, Ron and Hermione returning, ministry officials arriving, someone attending to the unconscious Blackwood. Finally, when he was certain the heart of Hogwarts was secure, Harry allowed Hermione to help him to his feet. "You did it," she said softly. "The tremors have stopped. The castle is stable again." Harry nodded tiredly. "What about Blackwood?" "Alive," Ron reported from the antechamber. "Though looking pretty rough. Kingsley's people have him in custody, magical restraints and everything. Apparently, trying to drain Hogwarts magic for personal gain violates about 20 different laws." "Good," Harry sighed. "Though I doubt that's the end of it." "No," agreed McGonagall, entering the heart chamber with evident awe. "Political battles rarely end so cleanly. But Hogwarts, at least, is safe." Harry looked up at the swirling nexus, now peaceful and harmonious again. "For now. But what happens next time someone decides its power is too tempting to leave alone?" "That," said a familiar voice, "is why Hogwarts has a king." They turned to find the ghost of Rowena Ravenclaw, the Grey Lady, floating at the chamber's entrance, more solid and present than Harry had ever seen her. "My mother's essence has fully returned to the spectral realm," she explained, approaching with unusual directness. "But her actions have awakened aspects of Hogwarts long dormant. Including my own role as witness to the king's reign." "Witness?" Harry asked. Helena nodded solemnly. "Each founder left a spectral guardian to observe and advise future generations. I am Ravenclaw's. The others have been, less attentive to their duties over the centuries." The Bloody Baron, Hermione realized. "And nearly headless Nick, they're not just house ghosts, are they?" "They were chosen by Slytherin and Gryffindor, yes," Helena confirmed. "Though Sir Nicholas came much later than the original guardian. As for Hufflepuff..." She hesitated. "The Fat Friar," Harry guessed. "Indeed. Though he rarely speaks of his deeper purpose." Helena turned back to Harry. "What happens next, King of Hogwarts, is your decision. The crown grants you authority not just over the castle's magic, but over its future." Harry looked around at the heart chamber, at the incredible magical power it contained, the knowledge embedded within it, the responsibility it represented. I don't want to rule Hogwarts, he said finally. That was never what this was about. I want to protect it. To preserve what the founders created, a place where magic can be learned safely, where knowledge can be passed to new generations without politics or power plays interfering. Helena smiled, a rare expression for the normally somber ghost. A worthy goal. And how will you achieve it? Harry thought for a moment, then smiled as an idea took shape. By sharing the responsibility. The way the founders originally intended. In the days that followed, the wizarding world buzzed with the news. Minister Blackwood had been removed from office pending trial, replaced temporarily by an interim minister selected by the Wizengamot. Project Wellspring had been publicly exposed, its remaining equipment confiscated and its records sealed by order of the Department of Mysteries. And at Hogwarts, Harry Potter, the newly confirmed king, had made his first official proclamation. The Great Hall was filled to capacity, students, teachers, governors, ministry representatives, and press all gathered to witness what many were calling a historic moment. Harry stood on the dais where Rowena Ravenclaw had first appeared, the ethereal crown visible to all. Hogwarts was founded on cooperation, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. For different wizards and witches, with 4 different visions, creating something greater than any could have achieved alone. Somewhere along the way, we lost sight of that original unity. He gestured to 4 empty chairs arranged beside him. The position of King of Hogwarts was created to protect the castle in times of crisis. But day-to-day governance was always meant to be shared among representatives of all 4 houses, a council of Hogwarts that could balance different perspectives and ensure no single view dominated. Today, I'm restoring that original vision. As king, I hereby establish a new council of Hogwarts, with members selected from each house, not based on politics or influence, but on their demonstrated commitment to the school and its values. McGonagall stepped forward. As headmistress, I fully support this restoration of Hogwarts' historical governance structure. The school will remain under educational oversight of the ministry, but its fundamental magic and traditions will be protected by the council, with the king as final arbiter in matters of magical security. There was a murmur of surprise and approval from the audience. Harry could see journalists scribbling frantically, trying to capture every word. The first council members have been selected, Harry continued. Representing Gryffindor, Neville Longbottom, whose courage and leadership during Hogwarts' darkest hour exemplifies the best of his house. Neville looked stunned as he was escorted to the first chair by nearly headless Nick, who beamed with ghostly pride. Representing Hufflepuff, Susan Bones, whose unwavering loyalty and commitment to justice honors her house's traditions. Susan, equally surprised, was guided to her seat by the fat friar, who bowed deeply as she sat. Representing Ravenclaw, Luna Lovegood, whose unique wisdom and perspective reminds us that knowledge takes many forms. Luna dreamily made her way to the third chair, escorted by Helena Ravenclaw, who for once looked pleased rather than melancholy. And representing Slytherin. Harry paused, knowing this choice had been his most controversial. Draco Malfoy, who has demonstrated that ambition can serve the greater good when directed toward preservation and understanding of magical heritage. The gasp from the audience was audible. Draco himself looked momentarily frozen in shock before composing himself and walking with dignity to the final chair. The Bloody Baron drifted beside him, offering a solemn nod of approval. These 4 will serve as Hogwarts' first council in centuries, Harry explained. They will help guide the school's development, protect its magical foundations, and ensure that what happened with Project Wellspring can never happen again. He turned to the council members. Your first task will be to review and renew the ancient treaties with the magical beings who share these lands, centaurs, merpeople, and others whose cooperation the founders valued but whom we've too often ignored. Luna smiled dreamily. The Forbidden Forest creatures have already sent messages. The centaurs are particularly interested in revisiting boundary agreements. Exactly, Harry nodded. These relationships matter. They're part of what makes Hogwarts what it is. He turned back to the wider audience. As for myself, My role as king will primarily be to maintain and protect the magical nexus beneath Hogwarts. The trials have given me the knowledge and connection needed to ensure its stability. And when you're not here, called a voice from the crowd, Rita Skeeter, quick quotes Quill hovering beside her. Will Hogwarts be left defenseless whenever the king has other commitments? Harry smiled. The bond doesn't require my constant presence. I can sense Hogwarts needs from anywhere in Britain, and return immediately if necessary. But for the foreseeable future, I'll be maintaining residence at the castle until the council is fully established. More questions followed, about the legal standing of the council, the exact nature of Harry's powers, the potential impact on ministry oversight of education. Harry answered each clearly and directly, the certainty of his new role evident in his calm demeanor. When the formal announcement concluded and the crowd began to disperse, Ron and Hermione joined Harry at the dais. "So," Ron said, clapping him on the shoulder. "King Harry. Council of Hogwarts. Malfoy as a counselor. Just another quiet week, then?" Harry laughed, the tension of the past days finally easing. "Just another quiet week. The council is a brilliant solution," Hermione said approvingly. "It maintains the protection of the king while distributing power in a way the ministry can accept." Even interim minister Hendricks seemed impressed. "It wasn't my idea, not really," Harry admitted. "The castle showed me memories of the original council, how the founders intended Hogwarts to be governed before politics and rivalries got in the way." He looked around the great hall, feeling the castle's presence in his mind, not intrusive but comforting, like an old friend. "What will you do now?" Hermione asked. "Beyond council meetings and nexus maintenance, I mean." Harry considered the question. For the first time in years, perhaps for the first time ever, his path wasn't dictated by prophecy, by Voldemort, or by others' expectations. The crown had given him new responsibilities, yes, but also new freedom to choose. "I think I'll teach," he said finally. "Defense against the dark arts. McGonagall's been after me to take the position for ages, and now that I'll be here anyway." Ron grinned. "Professor Potter. Has a nice ring to it." "King Professor Potter," Hermione corrected with a smile. "Quite the title collection you're developing." Harry groaned. "Please don't. Just Harry is fine." "Just Harry the King of Hogwarts," Ron teased. "Very modest." As they laughed together, Harry felt the weight of the crown, not as a burden, but as a connection to something greater than himself. Hogwarts had always been his first true home, and now it was his to protect. Later that evening, as sunset painted the castle in gold and crimson, Harry stood alone on the astronomy tower, looking out over the grounds. From this vantage point, he could see the entirety of Hogwarts, the great hall still lit for dinner, Hagrid's hut with smoke curling from its chimney, the forbidden forest where centaurs would soon gather under the rising moon to discuss renewed treaties. The mark on his palm tingled, and Harry placed his hand against the stone parapet. Immediately, he could feel the castle's magic flowing beneath his fingers, healthy, stable, and vibrant with possibility. "I'll keep you safe," he promised quietly. "Whatever comes next." A soft silver glow emanated from the stones beneath his hand, spreading outward like ripples in a pond until the entire castle shimmered momentarily in the fading light, Hogwarts' own acknowledgement of the bond between them. As darkness fell and stars appeared above the castle, Harry Potter, King of Hogwarts, smiled. For the first time in a very long time, all was well. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.